Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in the first decan of Aquarius. I hope that you're doing well out there, having a good Friday, having a good midsummer experience as we head into the weekend here. We're going to be breaking down this full moon. We're going to be looking at some of the themes associated with the first decan of Leo and the first decan of Aquarius. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Mercury-Saturn opposition. It's going to be perfecting around this time as well, and a little bit about Mars trining Jupiter. We will also take the full moon through the houses, through your rising signs. So if you are interested in what the full moon has in store for you, stick around for that. We're going to welcome some friends here to the chat. If you're just joining us, make sure you drop a little note in the chat. Let me know where you're stopping in from. Luna Storm 23 is here from the Pacific Northwest. Hello, friend. Tarja is here from Finland. Nice to see you. Reverend Kai is joining us from Kansas. I love the little sunflower emoji there. Rose T is stopping in. Says, hi, Spencer. I'm here from Ontario, Canada. Nice to see you, Rose. Unity Jackson is here. I'm here at 2 a.m. in Seoul, Korea. Wow. Glad to catch you for this one. All right. Well, thank you, friend. We always love our international friends here. So thank you for staying up late and being here in spirit and whatnot. I really appreciate you. What else we got going on today? Well, if you're new to the channel, please do me a huge favor and subscribe. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends. Please sign up for the newsletter. I put out a newsletter about every week or so, and it lets you know when we go live. It lets you know what type of offerings or classes I might have. I also do this thing called Song of the Week, the music of the Spheres Song of the Week, where I break down a song that is related to some of the astrology we're experiencing, especially an artist that shares some kind of chart placement with the astrology we're experiencing as well. This week, one of the song of the week was by Sinead O'Connor, who unfortunately passed away this week. So we tried to honor her in the newsletter, and maybe we'll look at her chart a little bit here today. She had Jupiter retrograde in the first decan of Leo, and was just a really powerful voice for the people in exile, for the oppressed, for standing up and speaking truth to power. And I think some of that are themes that we're going to be experiencing this full moon as well. So check that out if you want to learn more about the Song of the Week, and you can find that on my newsletter at my website, spencermichaud.com. What else? The Decans of Leo are on sale right now, 20% off the Decans of Leo. These are webinars that I did. If you enjoy the work that I do with tarot and astrology, these were 2.5 to 3 hour webinars that I did, consolidating all this wisdom, being able to talk about the connection of tarot and astrology, talking about mythology and fixed stars. I really had a nice time doing those webinars, and you can get them for 20% off right now for the Decans of Leo. So check that out. I'm still in process of creating a bigger decan walk that might be coming to you at the end of September. That's going to be released in probably the next week or two here, open for enrollment. So keep that on your radar. I will tell you more details once it is fully formed. And I'm excited about that. I hope that you'll join me for it. We're going to be doing a journey. We're probably going to be going on a year-long journey through the decans and learning as we go. The webinars will be part of it. So we'll talk about that more as we get closer to the release date of that. Let's see. More friends are joining us. Rachel Fletcher is here from Roanoke, Virginia. Nice to see you, Rachel. Thank you for joining us today. Good to see you, friend. Cookerzilla says, finally catching live. Well, welcome, friend. I'm glad you're here with us. Carol from Mass is here. Stay cool, Spencer. Yeah, it's getting warm. It's getting warm. I got my air conditioner on today, so we'll try to stay cool where we're at. Stephen the Jupiterian is here. Happy Venus Day, friend. Nanda Devi is joining us. Hello, Nanda Devi. Monique White is here. Hey, Spencer, saying hello from San Clemente, California. I wanted to shout out one of my younger fans, one of my most famous fans, actually. Her name is Lindsay, and yesterday was her birthday. So I would like to wish Lindsay a very happy belated birthday, And you're a star, my friend. Happy solar return, and I hope that the year ahead is fun for you and that all your dreams come true. So there you go. Let's see. Alfei Weatherly is joining us. Full moon conjunct my Venus Cazimi. Woohoo! All right. Well, that should be a fun one. Steven says, even though Venus is retrograde, happy Friday, Venus Day. Yeah, it happens. Planets go retrograde, and we've survived in the past, so we'll get through a Venus day with Venus retrograde. Feeling kind of chill and relaxed today. Josh Habermel is here. Nice to see you, friend. Hey, Spencer, I will most likely be catching the replay and will do what I can to listen live. Well, however you want to consume this show here today. I just love that you're stopping in and letting me know that you're here. Yeah, a lot of people stop in and, sometimes they'll catch part of it and then they'll catch the rest on replay. It's all good. There's no rules to this. Jody is here from Florida. Hi, Jody. Nice to see you. All right. And Monique says, yes, thanks, Spencer. You made her day. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I enjoy the fans of all ages on the show. And it's exciting to have the next generation of diviners and astrologers learning with us as a community as well. Mortal and Wild is here. Hey, Carol. It says, hi, Spencer. I'm listening, but just about to create some chaos in my kitchen. Summertime. I like that. A little creative chaos, right? That would be fun. I like a little of that cooking chaos. I just had some lunch. I had my lunch of the day. I tried to keep it simple. I had three eggs and some black beans. So pretty simple, nothing too fancy, but some protein to get me through some of these longer live streams that we go through. Oh, Steven says, I'm feeling anxious here with Mercury at the 29th degree of Leo. It's intense. Mercury needs to move into Virgo now. Well, as we're recording it, as Steven is pointing out, Mercury is moving through the final degrees of Leo. It is also hanging out near a fixed star called Regulus, which is a pretty important fixed star and pretty good for creating maybe honor and merit in your life. So maybe there's some things that you need to communicate that will, put yourself out there in the best possible light. Mercury will be gaining a lot of dignity as it moves into Virgo. So I'm looking forward to that too. I think it'll be really fortuitous for clearing our heads and figuring out what we need to do to move forward. Although what I will say is once Mercury moves into Virgo, it is going to be opposing Saturn, pretty closely applying instantly. So it's not going to be without challenges, but I think we can get through it. We'll figure it out. Dawn Fisher is here. Hey, Spencer, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Dawn. Okay. So thank you for stopping in, friends. It's always nice to hear from all of you and how your life is going. Let's kind of dive right into it. What do you say? Let's take a look at this full moon and check it out. Even though it's Venus Day, I'm wearing some Saturn oil today. I just received a new delivery from our friends over at Sphere and Sundry of Saturn and Capricorn oil, which I'm pretty excited about, actually. I think I needed some grounding today and some chill Saturn energy, and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling Saturnine. Big Daddy Saturn is here today, so maybe that'll help us with healthy boundaries and whatnot. So cheers to the folks at Sphere and Sundry for doing good work. And let's take a look at this full moon. It's a Saturnian full moon, right? It's the Aquarius full moon, the other domicile of Saturn. But some of the things that we're looking at right away is every full moon is an opposition between the lights. This one in particular, we are at the final degrees of the first decan of Leo and the first decan of Aquarius. So we'll break that down. Carol Perkins is joining us. Hello, Carol. Nice to see you. Dawn says, Spencer broke my heart with the Sinead reference in the email. I loved her so when I was a teenager. Yeah, Dawn. It was a huge loss. I've been kind of going down the Sinead O'Connor Venus retrograde nostalgia rabbit hole along with a lot of people who are mourning her loss. And I was, I was familiar with some of her work, and of course her most popular song and her most popular works, but I was really surprised at how intense her voice was when I dug a little bit deeper into her work, and just her raw honesty, her ability to, hold a mirror up to some of the challenging things in society. And it made it difficult for her in parts of her career, but she was so brave and so courageous. I think that was something I really respect, and it is a huge loss. And sometimes people like that aren't fully appreciated until they're gone. And I think we might be experiencing that with her a little bit here. So yeah, just a really nice light that has gone out in our musical community. But we do have a legacy from her, which is her music and her courage and things of that nature. So yeah, she's worth remembering and worth taking a little bit of a deep dive down some of her tunes. I was introduced to a song called Troy via Threads. A friend of mine posted a video on Threads, and I believe there's a line in that song where she just screams at the top of her lungs that she'll fight a dragon for you. Like, and you, when she said it, it felt like she meant it. And she just had these amazing, passionate, banshee like wails, and was also very sensitive in her expression. So yeah, check that out. There's a live version of that is worth revisiting. Okay. Steven said, who's your big daddy? Saturn here, right? Yeah, Dawn says she was a warrior and never really had an easy time of it. No, she didn't. She went against the grain, and that takes a lot of heart. And that might be something that we're going through with this full moon. Is she had Jupiter retrograde in Leo, so the sun was kind of lighting up that Jupiter retrograde. It was in the 9th house. She was a Sagittarius rising, first degrees of Sagittarius, and she had the sun in the 1st house, and I believe she had Venus in the 1st as well, fairly close to the ascendant. I mean, she was gorgeous and just had a beautiful voice as well. And but the 2nd decan Sagittarius sun is someone who's willing to stand up for themselves and willing to keep fighting even in the face of difficulties. So that Jupiter also speaks to her ability to utilize her spotlight to shine some light on some of the challenging things in life. Like, very famously, she took a picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live and ripped it up to bring awareness to some of the abuses of the Catholic Church at the time, with their challenges with children and things of that nature. So I don't want to belabor that point here today, but it took a lot of bravery on her part to do what she did. And it wasn't the same type of environment back then that it is now. A lot of times I guess on some level it's a little bit easier to speak truth to power now. It always takes bravery, but I think back then it was, people maybe tried to, conform a little bit more. There wasn't as many little corners of, like, the internet, for example, where you could be different and find your community. So for her to be able to do that at that time period, was probably even more isolating, but also, again, it was very rare to see that type of thing happening. So yeah, real trailblazer. Yes, Luna Storm says, yes, so brave, not afraid to challenge the norms. Randy Misner from the Eagles passed away too. Oh, I didn't know that. So that's another loss that we'll have to process. Dawn says, Sages don't fight quietly, don't tend to fight quietly. Yeah, she was honest, just raw honesty just erupted from her. Dawn says, much easier nowadays. That moment shut down her career. That's a good point, Dawn. It was very difficult for her to do what she did, or to keep making music, because there were a lot of more gatekeepers in the music industry then, and you couldn't kind of go your own way. So okay, so yeah, check out her music. That's a great way to honor those musicians that have passed is just spend some time with their music, listening to it and being changed by it. Okay, so if we tend to look at this full moon. So the sun in the first decan of Leo, it's a powerful position for the sun. Sun is in its own domicile, its own home. It is able to shine a spotlight and utilize attention, as we were talking about, that like Sinead O'Connor utilized her spotlight to bring awareness to an issue that had been repressed for a long period of time. We have a Five of Wands card associated with this decan. So here we see figures that are kind of competing with one another for attention, maybe competing in a mock battle of some sort, where they are attempting to, either win approval or win authenticity. They may be feeling the pressure of this Saturn-ruled decan to perform. And we may be feeling this at this full moon too, the pressure to take on a new role, the pressure to take on a new persona. It takes a lot of courage to try to be our authentic selves. And oftentimes, we have difficulty with that because our inner self does not necessarily match with our outer expression. And there's a number of reasons for that. There's traumatic reasons for that, because when we were growing up, maybe we weren't allowed to be our true self. Maybe it put us in a dangerous position if we were our true selves. Just like Sinead O'Connor being her true authentic self really kind of made it more difficult for her career. And it's true for a lot of musicians who had to kind of change who they were to be successful or to be accepted by the group. Now, when we see an opposition to the moon in Aquarius, moon in Aquarius is related to the Five of Swords. And here we see maybe the aftermath of that competition, where we have one person victorious collecting the Five Swords and two other figures walking away into exile or into the frontier. So we may be trying to balance out a need to get approval from the group or from our society, and also maybe the tendency or the desire to want to step away from something that is socially acceptable, to be able to leave something behind. This decan and Aquarius in general, I think, talks a lot about, the crisis of a refugee, right? We have something in the news cycle right now as far as like with America's current administration making it difficult for refugees down in I believe the Texas border. And I'm not as informed on that as I would like to be to comment on it socially, but I think that it's interesting that type of thing is in the news right now as we get to a full moon in Aquarius, because there's a lot of themes around crossing over literally one body of water in Aquarius, right? Moving from one state to another. And that could be literally from like one country to another, one state to another, but it could be a mental state, from one mental state to another. It could be from one circumstance in your life to another circumstance. So we're trying to balance out trying to engender the approval of the group while also finding beauty in kind of going our own way. We may also experience the challenges of trying to wrestle with insiders versus outsiders with this full moon. The Leo sun is really a point of centrality. In ancient astrology, it was associated with kingship or the kingdom or the royalty. Okay, the selection, like Robert Schmidt would call it, the planet that selects. So like, taking something and shining a spotlight on it and says, yes, this is what we need to pay attention to. This is what we are empowering. Whereas Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is a planet that casts things out into exile. It is a planet of invisibility. It's a planet of darkness. So we may be struggling with our visibility right now. We may be in situations where we have to become more visible, or we have to change the way that we present ourselves. And with Venus retrograde during this cycle, We may be going through the rebrand, right? The shift of values, the shift of the way that we show up for the world publicly, or the way that we present ourselves, or our personality, or our persona. And that can be uncomfortable. Those changes can feel really uncomfortable sometimes. I think that one of the things that the message of this moon might be telling us is that we need to find beauty and simplicity in not necessarily only within the power structures, but on the fringe as well. This is a Venus-ruled decan where the moon is in. Where we have a Saturn-ruled decan with the Leo sun, Venus-ruled decan where the moon is in. So being able to repurpose something that other people have discarded could also be a theme that we're experiencing. Like, think of like an artist that creates something from, goes into a junkyard and like upcycles things. Or think of like in 36 Faces, Austin Coppock talks about the metal of this decan not being gold, not the most expensive metal, but something like copper, or like related to a coppersmith. So taking a more a metal or some kind of resources that are maybe not as opulent, and creating something beautiful from it. So those are themes that we could be exploring. We will also be seeing Mercury newly ingressed into Virgo, as we are about to experience this afternoon as I record this on Friday the 28th? Is that what it is? What is time? So we have another opposition, not only the full moon opposition, but we have an opposition between Mercury and Saturn as well. Okay, very, very close. It's just going to be perfecting and separating by that point. Mercury in Virgo, very powerful position. Mercury is in its own domicile and exaltation. It's the only planet that has kind of a double dignity. And it's doubly debilitated in Pisces as well. So there's this really interesting thing, like there's duality associated with Mercury and Hermes. But when Mercury moves into its nocturnal domicile of Virgo, it is very much empowered. Our thinking becomes clearer. We are able to do the work that Mercury is requiring of us, which is oftentimes is separating things out into categories, really kind of focusing on figuring out what stays and what goes. The energy of Virgo to me is that harvest energy, where we become hyperly aware of the flaws in a system, in a physical thing, but also aware of the value that things possess, so that we can preserve it against the ravages of time or against the coming winter in the Northern Hemisphere. So we have to really take care of look at things up close and take care of the details, and look at things from a very, almost a microscopic view. Now, the challenge that we're going to be experiencing is Saturn retrograding in the first 10 degrees of Pisces is probably going to challenge us to take a larger view. It's going to be saying, look, you have a dream, and you're trying to put the details together to achieve some kind of dream, to concretize the dream. Saturn is a planet that concretizes things. It brings things into reality. It eliminates other options so that you can make one of them real. So some of our dreams, right? Pisces is associated with dreams and the kind of the connective tissue of spirit in between reality, the liminal spaces. Some of those dreams may prove to be unrealistic, and we may have to continue to connect with which one of those dreams, which one of those narratives and stories that are creating our reality are going to continue to be the blueprint that we shape our physical reality around. There's a great book by Charles Obert named The Classical Seven Planets, and in it he talks about the relationship with Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn being the planet that creates the idealistic blueprint, like think of like the Platonic form, like if you have the ideal of a horse, and then you have a planet like Jupiter that begets from that blueprint, that creates from that blueprint the multiplicity of horses that you see, the variety of horses that you see in physical reality, the ones with stripes, polka dots, etc. I don't know if there's polka dotted horse, I guess there is. So wherever Saturn's at, we're kind of examining the structures, the idealistic structures of our life. Saturn also ends things. So this is why we're talking about the ending of a narrative that could be limiting, especially when Saturn's retrograde. We may have some narratives in our lives that become prisons rather than liberation. And we're going to really have to examine that with the Mercury-Saturn opposition. We may want to do things in a very specific fashion. Virgo has a lot of energy of the how a process is done. Process is a really great word for Virgo as well. It's the process of infusing spirit into matter, to weaving it into physical reality. In the first decan of Virgo, we are learning the rules of incarnation. We're learning what we need to do and the skills that we need to acquire and the materials that we need. We have an awareness of it. It's a solar decan. We have an awareness of the skills and materials necessary to weave a great work of art or to preserve something against the ravages of time. So that can put us in a position of getting fixated on process, on skills. Sometimes when we have an awareness of the skills that are necessary to bring something into fruition, we get a little bit anxious because we may or may not possess those skills yet, right? So there may be something where you don't necessarily possess the skills necessary to weave the dream into reality yet. And that's where, Mercury is hitting the wall, hitting the brick wall where he's saying, I gotta study a little more. I gotta go back to the drawing board a little more, because I'm not going to be able to manifest the vision with just the skills that I possess right now. And this also is going to come up as Mercury gets ready to retrograde in Virgo as well. That could also be another time period where we're saying, you know what, we've got to reskill a little bit. I mean, I love Mercury retrograde in Virgo for the very fact that it would probably require us to reskill. I don't mind doing that. There are certain situations where it could be difficult, but I think that if you enjoy studying, Mercury retrograde in Virgo could be a very fortuitous time for learning a new skill set to be able to manifest your vision into reality. So I think that one of the things that we're working through here is trying to understand the limitations of our mind, the limitations of our skills, the ability that we have to bring something into reality, and we're being challenged to really connect to why we are doing things the way that we are doing it. Saturn in Pisces is really very connected to the why. What is the way that you're doing something actually moving you towards your bliss? Or is it taking you further away from it? I know that as a Virgo stellium, Jupiter, Saturn and Mars in Virgo, I've had a lot of challenges in my life where I got very fixated on doing things a certain way. And it ended up being causing more suffering, right? And I know that throughout Saturn's retrograde or Saturn's journey through Pisces here, there's been a number of times where I've had to say, is me focusing so intensely on every single detail of this process really the best use of my time, or moving me closer to the essence of my goal? And oftentimes I have to surrender and say, you know what, like either this was good enough, right? That's another thing that Pisces tries to say, is this is good enough. Whereas Virgo is like, that's not good enough, right? So we have to figure out what is good enough. How can we maybe release some of the, I don't know if the word is anal retentiveness, but that could be part of it if we're going to an extreme. And just allow the process to happen. Sometimes we need to surrender to the process rather than try to control the process. So these are themes I think will be coming up as we see the sun opposing the moon and Mercury opposing Saturn. So I think that if we combine those two oppositions, we may be trying to put ourselves out there to move ourselves forward on our journey. It may create conflicts with others, when we are trying to achieve a goal, when we're trying to empower ourselves, sometimes that can put someone else in a challenging position, or we may find ourselves in a challenging position because of someone else's empowerment. Okay. Sometimes there are winners and sometimes there are losers. That's what the Five of Swords card talks about. How do we maintain our integrity and our grace throughout transitions, though, I think is probably the more, I guess, enlightened way to look at it. Because we are always going to, have a period where we're trying to find our way. There is, none of the malefic planets are going to be making an immediate aspect to this lunation, so that's not necessarily a huge problem. We do have Jupiter making an overcoming square to the sun and squaring the moon. I'm not super worried about that either. In Hellenistic astrology, when a benefic planet is in the overcoming position, it's generally fortunate. Jupiter is showing us the types of actions that we can take that will lead to honor and merit and prosperity and peace and harmony. And in this case, Jupiter's in this second decan of Taurus. And that decan is about generosity. That decan is about giving and receiving. It's also about being able to be consistent with the way that you're creating fertility in your life. Like showing up consistently day after day and doing just enough to move things forward. And then taking the time to relax or to play or to feel, to do something good for yourself as well. There's a self-care decan as well. But if you push things too hard, right? If you try to work too hard, you'll burn out. If you don't work hard enough, you won't get anything done. So it's a rhythm. There's a seasonal rhythm to the second decan of Taurus. So that might be the approach to take with this is we may be feeling a lot of pressure to perform, maybe feeling a lot of changes due to our changing circumstances. And we may also need to just kind of relax a little bit, be patient with the process. They say Rome wasn't built in a day. It can fall in a day. I think that's what's interesting to me. Rome definitely fell in, one particular point, although that's not always necessarily true either. You can see the seeds of decay coming over a long period of time in a lot of situations. But the point being, consistent, showing up, doing just enough, not overworking something, right? This could be a part of a problem with Mercury and Mars in Virgo is overworking something to the point where we get diminishing returns. I used to draw a lot when I was a kid, and my Virgo stellium would rear its ugly head because I wanted things to look photorealistic, and I would end up starting on one piece of like a face, and I would spend 2 hours on an eyeball, and then I would try to draw the rest of it, and I would lose steam, and it just didn't look right. It was like Picasso, right? Because I didn't start with the end in mind. And as I grew as an artist, I started making outlines of those little like circles and arcs where you're supposed to place the eyes and the nose and things like that. And that was something that was really instructive. That to me is, beginning with the end in mind on some level. But I would have real difficulty with mediums like watercolor because it's hard to control it, right? I liked acrylics because it would dry and then you could get real detailed once again. But like watercolor, there's a certain surrender to watercolor. I would end up just like having a brown soup when I was trying to do watercolors because I would just keep working something to death, or I would erase the hole in the page if I was doing something. And that has been a problem in a number of areas. So relax the overworking something. Let nature take the reins. This is another thing Jupiter's teaching us, is that you can only do so much when you go into the garden. You can water it, you can create the right conditions, you can remove the rocks, you can talk nice to the plant, and feed it. But then at the end of the day, nature has to do its thing. You can't rush it, right? You can only provide the environment that will allow it to be its best self. So how can you, during this full moon, create the environment for healthy growth without forcing it? Okay. You know, we're also dealing with the nodes have recently shifted into Aries and Libra. So we may be more inclined to begin things. We may be more inclined to really start to ask, what's in it for me? Like, right? How do I get my own needs met rather than continuously acquiescing to the needs of others? Or you may be feeling less inclined to ask permission or to compromise. So that could be a part of this as well. That could lead to some of these tensions potentially. So what I'm going to do, we'll look at how this is going to play out for the rest of the cycle, but I want to look through the chat here. Let's see. So we've got people that are commenting on Sagittarius honesty styles and like that. Stephen says, I know how to be anal retentive well. I have the South Node in Virgo and Pluto in Virgo, my 10th. Oh man. Yeah, that's a placement where, you know, some of those tendencies may have to be relinquished, right? That you may have to release that. Lisa says, love that Jupiter piece. Yeah, it is a nice part of this. I think it's a kind of a saving grace within the full moon. Lynn is here. Nice to see you, Lynn. Hi. All chat is being weird for me for some reason. Uh-oh. Well, I hope that you're here. So I'm glad that I can see you. Maybe a different account that you're in now, huh? Yeah, we've got the people acknowledging the challenges of obsessing over detail with Virgo placements. Jennifer says, I drew in pencil and charcoal when younger and then found Zentangle. It's done in pen, and its philosophy is no mistakes. Helped me to go with the flow. Oh, that's cool, Jennifer. I'll have to check that out. Okay, well, I hope everyone who's having some challenges in the chat it's working out for you. But yes, Lynn, I can see you. You're here. And let's see. Let's keep on going. Let's keep on rolling. I just want to show you how this might kind of play out afterwards. If we go a day in advance here, we're going to keep the full moon in the inner circle, and then we're going to look at the movement of the lunation in the outer realm here. So one of the first things I like to look at with a full moon, and there's a Hellenistic technique called having the moon be under the bond. And when the moon is under the bond, it means it's in it's kind of chained down. It's not able to manifest as well as it normally would be. And that degree is on 15 degrees of either side of a conjunction or 15 degrees of either side of an opposition. So what we're looking for is when the moon will finally escape the bond and get outside of that 15 degree aspect. So when we have the moon escaping the bond, it's going to make an opposition to Venus. So this is something that shows us, you know, potentially how the full or new moon could be playing out, whether it's difficult, if it has an aspect or a hard aspect with the malefic planet, or whether it's beneficial with an aspect to a benefic planet. In this case, we have an opposition with Venus retrograde. So a hard aspect with a benefic that is a little bit debilitated right now by being retrograde and you know going to be under the beams of the sun shortly afterwards. So this is, you know, the moon's going to be opposing Venus right as it's moving under the beams of the sun, right, August 2nd to August 3rd. Okay, so this could be a challenge of like figuring out, you know, should we stay or should we go? Should we defend a belief system or should we let it go? I think that those third decans of Leo and Aquarius really speak to being able to figure out what is worth defending and where do you need to just kind of give up and say, you know what, that's not worth fighting anymore. So when we bring Venus into the equation, there could be something that we love, there could be value, there could be something where we're trying to create beauty, where we may be defending a position that the moon is going to be asking us, do you really need to keep defending this value or position? Might it be easier if you let it go? In some cases, the answer is yes. In some cases, it's worth defending. Like, for example, we talked about our musician of the week, basically, Sinead O'Connor. She had a position that was very important for her to defend, and she ended up being right. So even though she got a lot of flack for it, history will look back on her stance as probably being the correct one. So I think that that's something to consider as we look at how the full moon is going to start playing out. KP 1231 is here. Hello, KP. Nice to see you. Kate's here also. Nice to see you, Kate. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. So after we have the moon escaping the bond and making the opposition to Venus, we have a couple other things that are going to be starting to play out. First of all, what I didn't mention is in the full moon itself is that we do have a positive trine between Mars and Jupiter. So I was talking about Jupiter being this kind of, guardian angel in this full moon type of experience. But Mars, our ability to, parse out the details, our ability to eliminate parts that aren't working is really going to be supported by Jupiter. So I think that this is a very earthy benefit to this full moon, where we may really, it's time to kind of clear out the clutter. It's time to, the way I see this Mars Jupiter kind of aspect, think about it as you've got a big project where you have to, really pay attention to the details. You need to eliminate parts that aren't working. But Jupiter is saying, okay, you got to pace yourself in this. You got to do just enough for today, and then you need to revisit it tomorrow, and then the day after. There's a consistency with it. So I think that this is time to really get practical, to eliminate the parts of your project or your whatever it is that aren't working, but also try to plant the seeds for future abundance with Jupiter in this decan. Beth is here too. Nice to see you, Beth. Hi from Wisconsin. This full moon is right next to my natal sun. Oh my goodness, Beth. Well, you're gonna feel this one then. Lynn says Saturn being in Pisces has helped me let go and dissolve boundaries. Maybe because my moon is there. Yeah, I think so. I think it is definitely a boundary dissolver. Again, Virgo Mercury separates things out into categories, right? It creates boundaries on some level. I think that there is sort of a little bit of a synchronicity between Mercury and Saturn on that level. Although the biggest difference is that Mercury can transgress the boundaries. I think it goes in between worlds and liminal spaces. It doesn't always respect boundaries, especially in the diurnal sign of Gemini, whereas it may have more of an ability to see some of those practical boundaries in Virgo. Hey, Rachel's here from Ireland. Another Friday evening here, but always feeling the warmth and joy of the live streams. Well, welcome, Rachel. Hope you're doing well. We've been talking about, I think, a fellow countryman, country person that recently passed with Sinead O'Connor. I wonder how people are taking that over in Ireland. I wonder if there's a different perspective there than in the United States. I always like hearing everyone's perspectives. Kate says, seems like a mix between high ideals and realistic ideals are taking practical strides. Yes, absolutely. Beth's been feeling the pacing energy all year. Yeah. Michelle is here. Hey, Spencer, better late than never. No, better here than, you're exactly where you're meant to be, Michelle. Modern Goldilocks is stopping in. Hello, all. I'm here listening and trying to hang a curtain rod. Okay. Doing some practical stuff. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your super sticker. I appreciate you. Yeah, if you want to make a material donation to the work I'm doing here today, there's a little $sign in the chat. It's called super chat or super sticker, super sticker. And I really appreciate everyone who makes donations during the time that we're here. And if you catch it after the fact, you can buy what's called a super thanks, which is a little heart on the video, or you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. Other ways to support the channel are to purchase the Decans webinars or sign up for a reading. Those are, I always love connecting with all of you and happy to be a guide for you during some of these challenging times. Stephen is joining us instead of doing his tarot card reading for a client. Wow, Stephen. I'm honored that you'll procrastinate with us, but you know, it's a balance, right? Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I talked about the Mars-Jupiter trine, because that's one of the positive aspects that isn't in opposition, right? Some energy that we can work with. In opposition, sometimes we can't always reconcile the two opposing sides. But when we have a trine, that can give us some clues as to some of the things that could be working out, like, you know, really eliminating some of the things that aren't working, but also working at a reasonable pace. Okay. We talked about the bond, the loosening of the bond, and the first aspect the moon makes. You know, we get to the third here. This is where we see Venus going under the beams of the sun. So this is when Venus is becoming invisible. So this could be a really important moment for starting to release some of the old beliefs that aren't serving you anymore. This may be a time where you're really having to let go of a certain entrenched position that you've been defending for a long period of time. It may be where you're really like, I can see could be a moment where, let's say you're rebranding a website or something. This could be the time where you kind of go offline for a little bit, right? Sometimes there's times when a website goes dark and you disappear for a little while, and then you emerge with this new persona, this new beautiful kind of presentation. So that could be part of this too, where we're really working behind the scenes on our image, on our beliefs, on something that eventually will be revealed when Venus is in the heart of the sun, but more so when Venus will emerge from the beams of the sun when it is on 15 degrees of the other side of the sun, emerging as the morning star. That's the moment where you're probably going to really see some of this work that you've been doing, Venusian work, coming to visibility. But those moments when a planet goes under the beams or emerges from the beams are always really important for messages and understanding what the Cazimi cycle is all about. Robert Schmidt would call those moments of phasis, right? That phasis being an omen that speaks, okay? So, let me move this over here. Looking through the chat, we're getting some nice comments here. Carol says, haha, nailed it. I'm learning UI design for building websites. Well, there you go. There you go. I mean, it's not a super uncommon manifestation in our modern age, right, Carol? It's like a lot of the times the face that we present to the world is a digital one. And if we're going to be redoing the way that we present ourselves to the world, oftentimes it can manifest in like a digital way, right? So yeah, it's really interesting to see how that plays out, and good luck with that. Okay, so that's our Venus going under the beams of the sun. We'll take this a little further through, and I did a real deep dive on some of this in my Astrology of August, but we'll just give you a little bit of a heads up of how this lunation is playing out. On the 6th here, then that sun's going to be making the square to Jupiter. So maybe the challenge of how much is enough, right? Of how much do we need to keep, how much abundance is enough, how much seed planting is enough. And there may be a little bit of tension between the pace that we want to go at and the need to, claim victory, I guess. I don't know. There's all sorts of things that we could be going through here. You know, we have the 6 of Wands where you see someone returning victorious from a battle, and the 6 of Pentacles where we're seeing somebody giving and receiving benefits. So there could be a tension between maybe even getting credit for the amount of work or resources that we're giving. We may be wanting a little bit more acknowledgement for the work that we've put in, and that could be a little bit difficult. But again, Jupiter overcoming is pretty positive. So this might also be receiving resources that you need to be able to be your most authentic self. That could be another possibility with this. And we get to the quarter. We talk about quarter moons here. We've got the moon working in, it's going to be at roughly the same position as Jupiter here in Taurus. So again, I'm not super concerned about this quarter moon. I think this could be a really positive one. But last quarter moons are really about release and maybe turning points where we have a bit of an existential crisis about what we need to let go of to create final manifestation. We're kind of starting to clear the decks for the next cycle. The next cycle is going to be a new moon in the third decan of Leo. So this might be a little bit of an existential crisis about, our worth, like how much we're going to charge for something, or will someone think of us as differently if we increase our value or something like that. Like this could be part of the questions that you're asking yourself around, August the 8th. Maybe you have a new program that's coming out in a week or two, and it might be a little more expensive than people are used to, and coming to terms with that could be something that you're working through at this last quarter moon. Trying to work through that myself with putting together a larger offering that is longer, and that because of its length will probably need to be more expensive. And I look at the numbers and I'm like, oh, that looks a little expensive. But at the same time, you have to learn what your value is around this period of time. And if you put the work in and you've really done your homework and prepared, I think it's okay to value yourself, and I think it's okay to make changes in the way other people see you as well. I think that oftentimes we try to keep ourselves small because we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to either make other people upset, or we don't want to make other people jealous or something like that. But any of those things is oftentimes more a reflection of the other person rather than anything that you have done. It's their own projection on you. So hopefully that will allow you to have the confidence to move forward with your plans around this period of time, is understanding that, not everyone's going to get it. Not everyone is going to be supportive. But when you know something is important to you, or if you are in alignment with your own authenticity, that's really the approval that you need, right? And I think with the North Node in Aries, the time for asking other people's opinions on things is, you don't want to be a complete, a narcissist about it or anything like that, where you just completely don't have any empathy or compassion. But there are certain circumstances where you know in your heart what you want and what is right for you, and it may not be what is right or in someone else's heart. And by asking someone else's permission or perspective or whatnot, it could dilute the passion that you need to make a new start. So that's something that I think is important to understand with the North Node in Aries, is that you may not always want someone else's input at this point. Now that being said, the North Node in Jyotish is a hungry dragon or a hungry demon that can never be satisfied. So you might have to be careful about how independent you try to become. You can overdo it as well. I do think that the nodal axis requires balance. But oftentimes we look at the North Node for the types of actions that may help us to be more, I don't know if the word's successful, but will help us to bring energy into the world. It is a gate or a portal. I don't like really those words, but in this case, it's apropos. In this case, the ability to bring something into existence will require some of the energy that the North Node is in. It will require being able to be more independent, to understand that you can move forward under your own power. At this point, in the third decan of Aries, you may need to woo a little bit. You may need to sell your idea a little bit. You may need to try to get people on board through social grace. right? Rather than just bludgeoning them with a hammer. You got to make your idea attractive to people. And, the ability to let things go, maybe with the third decan of Libra is always needing approval, always checking in with everyone else, like if it's okay. It's tough. Like a lot of times people pleasing is a defense mechanism. I think a lot of times we were thrust into situations as young people where if we didn't always run something by someone, that we would get in trouble, or we were afraid of making a mistake. I think that this again, some of this is a trauma response. I think it's important not to be indecisive with the South Node in Libra as well. A lot of the times, and myself included, I can be very indecisive sometimes because I'm always weighing all of the possibilities. But if you constantly are weighing each side of things, you can miss your opportunity. You can be late to the party, and then sometimes it's too late. So Aries is kind of the energy that says, you know what, just try it. Let's just kind of, not to be crass, but just like, fuck it, let's do it. Like, and if we make a mistake, that'll be information, quote unquote, a mistake, quote unquote. It's not necessarily a mistake. You're just taking an action that could eventually lead you to the right action, even if it's one that doesn't create the outcome that you were expecting. Excuse me. Sorry, that went down the wrong pipe. Hold on. Try to survive here. I drank some water and it went down the breathing pipe. Water works better if it goes down the drinking pipe. Sorry, friends. There we go. I think it's cleared. Oh boy. Let's check in with the chat here. Yeah, Cookerzilla says Aries has been brand new energy. A lot of us are trying to make new starts in certain areas of our life. We got talking about a lot of people resonating with the Mars Jupiter trine, about maybe trying to organize their homes or their lives in some regard. And this would be a really good time to do that, to get rid of the clutter. Rachel says, this speaks to me a lot. Interesting, I've been receiving very positive projections on my value as part of a new teaching project, which is also difficult to receive. Yeah, I hear that, Rachel. I'm going through something similar as I try to maybe put together a bigger offering that I'm not used to. Maybe we're not used to asking for the type of value that our work is worth also. But it's important. Like, I think that you're seeing this with people striking, is that oftentimes our work has been undervalued. And it's in a lot of times we as sensitive people who are empathetic to people's situation tend to fall on the sword for everyone else because we know what it's like to have a challenging situation. So these actors, for example, they were thrust into a position where the system really kind of made it difficult for them to get fairly compensated. And now they're saying, you know what? No, this is our value. I'm not talking about the superstars. They are probably compensated well, but we're talking about just the regular folks, right? So that's another thing with this full moon, is we're going to be seeing the interaction between the haves and the have-nots, and how do we reconcile that? But I do think it is important to value yourself. And again, even if let's say you're increasing your rates, there's always opportunities and ways to include people as well, even if someone doesn't have the resources to pay your full rate. Like, for example, in my offering that I'm putting together, I always do accept payment plans. And if somebody really reaches out to me and is like, is there a way that I could get a discount or something? Like, I don't always turn people away. Like, there's ways to reconcile those things, even when you're trying to increase your prosperity. Like, if you're worried about, like, oh, am I going to be seen as a bad person or something like that? Like, that's one of the things that we get programmed to, oftentimes by people that were being exploited by. Like a lot of times, like the prevailing wisdom is, like as a worker, you shouldn't ask for your value. And oftentimes that's just benefiting somebody who is extracting the value from you. So you have to be cognizant of those things as you move forward with these types of conversations. Kate says, I wish you could see the way I see you. Sometimes one person believing in you. Yeah, that's important. Like, we often have blind spots to our own value. And I think that's part of what we're going to be dealing with here too. Rachel says, Libra moon in the third pecan. Like, you've got the third pecan moon? Love that pie. Wait, I know what you mean. It's the third decan. Always looking out for what other people prefer, rather than just starting what we'll do. Yeah, this may be an opportunity for you, Rachel, to reduce that tendency so that you can move forward with, your own needs. And again, just because we advocate for our own needs does not mean that we're just completely running roughshod or dominating someone else. A lot of times when people have important placements in Libra, but then there's like something like the North Node in Aries, they're still, being fair, but they're just taking their own needs into account, right? Oftentimes someone with Libra the scales could be balanced in the opposite way, where you're not being fair because you're not taking care of your own needs. You're sacrificing your own needs. So that's not actually in balance. That's not actually fair. So you may need to reduce that tendency to actually bring things back into equilibrium. And the way to do that is to, advocate for yourself. Rose T says, haha, yes, I usually just go for it as an Aries rising. If I screw up, I accept my mistake and try again. That's a good, I appreciate that. Like, I wish I had a little bit more of that in my personality sometimes, but I'm trying to work on that. And I think we all are trying to work on that. Rachel says, take a moment, Spencer. You could absolutely pause to drink or stretch or whatever is required. Yeah, to breathe. That's what I was trying to do when I was choking on my water. Modern Goldilocks, thank you so much for the super sticker, friend. I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Completely true about money and charging enough for your time, energy, and knowledge. Yes. And I will say this too, even if we are struggling with some of the ethics around late stage capitalism, which I often talk about on this channel, some of that is not, putting a price or a value on your services and charging the appropriate amount for your services is not necessarily what we're speaking towards when we talk about the abuses of late stage capitalism. That's if you're just an individual who's out there providing a service and trying to have it valued properly within the marketplace, that's not the worst of capitalism. What we're talking about is when we have like giant entities that are extracting labor value from multiple individuals and then taking much more than their fair share on the backs of someone else's labor. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about, the abuses of late stage capitalism. Now, some of the challenges as individuals could potentially be around, having to, not having the types of resources from the community where you have to make some difficult choices about your value. Those could be part of the challenges. But what I think that is important is we need to start releasing some of the guilt around properly valuing ourselves, especially if we're trying to see it through the lens of social justice. I think that there are ways to value ourselves and still hold the system accountable so that we don't have to continually make these life or death ethical decisions because, a billionaire, for example, is hoarding wealth and resources and just leaving scraps for everyone else. That's been a real difficult part of my own growth around this is seeing that there's different ways to operate within this system. We can still criticize the system while also not starving within it, I guess. Does that make sense? Or not like having to be not taking care of our needs within it. Sometimes you do have to play by the rules of the game a little bit while you're trying to change the game. that's something that I've been trying to find that balance in my own life for a long time. Rachel says, if we already find it hard to receive, it's almost impossible to ask. I think I'm being shown by people I greatly respect to expect more, and now learning to own that for myself. Yes, I agree. Kate says, fire of Aries North Node and Leo Sun reminds me of the attention that can, for some, maybe give imposter feeling. Yeah, I think that's some good observation, Kate. I think that first decan of Leo definitely can feel like we're putting on a persona, we're testing it out. And we can have some doubts in the beginning of testing out a new persona. But we just have to work through it. We just have to live through the answers. Sometimes we'll overshoot the mark and we have to make adjustments, right? Sometimes you might, put on too much bravado and you have to make an adjustment. But it's better trying than to just, remain in the shadows and never get your needs met. I think that life is a process, and sometimes we do too little, sometimes we do too much, and as modern Goldilocks, her name implies, sometimes eventually you find out what is just right. Rachel says, pecans all the way. We may learn to undervalue ourselves in other arenas and carry that unwittingly into our earning sphere. Oh, yes. Great observation, Rachel. I love that. Yeah. A lot of this comes just from personal insecurity, where we're, either we've suffered some trauma in the past that didn't allow us to value ourselves properly. And then, yes, when that can spill out into our financial life. I think I suffer from this sometimes, Rachel. I grew up as a person of a child of divorce. And, I had a lot of interactions with step parents that really just didn't get me. They really didn't understand who I was. And I was a unique kid. I spent a lot of time alone as a kid, and I had my own viewpoints on things. And I was just as intense then as I am now. And I was always kind of the stranger in someone else's house, going back and forth between my parents and step parents' house and all this and that. So it was difficult to feel valued, because a lot of times you get the sense that that person doesn't want you there, so that can spill out into other arenas. And a lot of artists and musicians and people, any creative person, sometimes have stories like this, where when they feel unseen or they feel invisible or they feel undervalued, they tend to gravitate towards a career where they're trying to gain the approval of the crowd, where they're almost have an insatiable need to be validated. I saw this with the George Michael documentary, the Wham documentary I was watching. He was kind of a nerdy kid who his dad didn't really see the real him. So he needed that validation from his audience, and eventually he had to start backing off of that because he recognized it wasn't making him happy. And I've gone through this process too. I've recognized that sometimes that I don't necessarily need the type of validation that I was getting through my music career. And even as an astrologer, like as I've grown into, hopefully being a more authentic expression of my true self, I've had to care less and less about the approval of everyone in my audience. Not that I don't care. I do care. I do care about all of you, but I've had to not dilute my voice to be able to get the approval of more people. Sometimes when you're getting everyone's approval, it means you're really not doing things correctly. Now, that's not true for everyone. There are certain transcendent thoughts that everyone can sort of get on board with. But a lot of the times when you're being a true expression of yourself, like Sinead O'Connor, you're going to get some pushback, right? Because it's not everybody's cup of tea. And the more that you can be okay with that, I think the more that you're learning how to do both the axis of Aquarius and Leo. Now, again, there are stories in Leo about learning the lesson of compassion. I think it's when we start to not care as much what people think of us, it's not an excuse to just go off the rails of narcissism. It's not an excuse to just never consider anyone else's feelings and be like, screw you, I don't care what you think, I'm just going to do whatever I want because I want to do it. I saw a lot of this during the pandemic, but especially with my Leo 9 friends. A lot of them really struggled with having to do things for the good of the community because they wanted to do something, and having the community say, could you just not do this so that we all can like get through this together, was very, very difficult for a lot of those folks. And there were certain parts of that I struggled with, but I tend more towards self-sacrifice. So I think I went almost extreme in the other direction, where I sacrificed so many of my own desires because of what I perceived as the group's needs, that I'm having to find that balance once again. So that being said, the story of Percival comes back with Leo. It's the story of the Grail quest, where the Leonine person finally gets it, right? Percival, the knight, by asking whom the Grail serves, asking what ails the Fisher King, of having concern for others. So that is also part of the Leo journey, is finding compassion. The tarot speaks to this very specifically, associating Leo with the Strength card. And oftentimes, what we need to do, I pulled this card. This is my card of the day, to be honest with you. I've been pulling a card of the day and a personal card, and the Strength card was my card of the day. So we see the goddess, maybe even the goddess Astraea, or the goddess of Virgo, Demeter, taming the lion, taming our baser instincts, taming some of our desires. It doesn't mean that we're killing the lion or killing our desires. It means that we are just, having a balanced desire, okay? And that we're not necessarily just running roughshod over everyone. There is a tendency in Leo, I'm speaking from experience, as a third decan Mars-ruled Leo ascendant, there's a tendency sometimes for us to want to dominate. The sun is an entity in the sky that blocks out everything else. Its light just blinds everything. You can't even see anything in the daytime. You can't see the rest of the stars. It blinds all the other stars, right? Sometimes we can shine so brightly and so intensely in our Leo 9 passion that we can burn other people up. This is what we talk about when planets are near the sun and become combust. There's this intensity to it. And oftentimes we have to learn how to control that or direct that, or to turn down the volume on it every once in a while. There's nothing wrong with that. So again, I really am a believer in moderation, finding the right balance between these competing energies. All right, I'm going to look through the chat here. Let's see if there's thoughts on that. Lynn says, Mercury in Virgo may help. I'm hoping the opposition to Saturn won't preclude getting rid of things. Yeah, I don't think so. I think Mars trining Jupiter is a good aspect for getting rid of things. I'm going to be doing some of that this next week, is just clearing out some clutter. But also, preparing this next offering that we've been discussing. Kate says, Mercury in Virgo does feel like trying, walking the walk, fake it till you make it, trial and error, practice, practice, practice. Yeah, I think so. I think it's also just the skills necessary to get you from point A to point B. And point A being the idea, point B being the manifestation of the idea. Practice what you preach, Kate says. Rachel says, evolving our persona in the world is part of our overall evolution and contribution. Yes, I agree with that. There are periods where we just have to stretch ourselves, and others when it's okay to integrate, settle, and coast a little. Yep, there are different requirements for different time periods. That's why we study astrology, so we understand what is required of us at different times. My advice changes a lot on this channel. I mean, depending on what I see in the sky. Like if the North Node was in Libra, we might have to take people's opinions into consideration a lot more than we normally have, but it's a little bit different with the North Node in Aries. Rachel says, thank you for sharing that story, Spencer. It'll speak to many people. Okay, good. I'm glad. This is why we do this, right? Rachel says, I have a significant family loss as a young person. I had a significant family loss as a young person. Although not logical, it later created a giant chasm in my sense of self-worth in the world. Yeah, it's true. I just, someone suggested a book that I'm in the process of beginning called what is it called? The Drama of the Gifted Child. So this talks about, trauma that we experience as a child and some of the defense mechanisms that we may develop in response to that. So we all have something like that. We're all working on it. So be gentle with yourself through the process. Monique says, I am in and out because my signal sucks, but I will have to catch the replay. Well, Monique, I hope that your signal sucks isn't code for I'm watching a baseball game. I'm just kidding. I don't care if you're watching a baseball game or whatever. I jab Monique a little bit. We share an affinity for sports, but she likes baseball, which is, I like baseball, but it's not my number one sport. But whatever. Jennifer says, I have North Node in the first decan and Uranus in the third decan of Leo natally. Well, then some of this I hope will resonate. Rachel says, I'm an Aquarian sun like Beth or EK. I used to struggle getting Leo energy. I've learned to love it. That said, I'll pipe down and keep quiet for y'all for a while. No, Rachel, just all comments good. Just if I skip over some of your comments, it's not personal. I'm just trying to move things along, but just, you don't have to feel bad about putting something in the chat, friends. This is what it's for. Okay. I don't know who Leslie Jordan is, Kate. You'll have to remind me who that is. It's for me to speak on your comment. Okay. So this has all been a long-winded way of saying that we're getting, excuse me, we're getting to the end of this cycle. We're going to see, the Cazimi of Venus happening around August the 13th. I'm curious about this one, just from my own personal perspective. I'm going to have Jupiter on my natal moon in the 10th and the Venus Cazimi on my natal ascendant. So that sounds good to me. We'll see. I'll let you know around that period of time. But this could be the moment where our values are renewed in the heart of the sun, where we're starting to get some really great ideas about who we want to be, what things are worth defending, what things we need to let go of. It can be a really fortunate moment, I think, as well. So then finally, the end of this lunar cycle is going to happen with the new moon at 23 degrees of Leo. Okay, so a lot of the challenges that we've been working on with Venus retrograding through the third decan of Leo, we may be able to understand how to make a new start with those as well around this period of time. And we'll talk about that more as we get to it, but I think this is a moment of revelation where we're starting the period of coming out into the world more, presenting ourselves. So I would use the time between this full moon and this new moon in Leo to really get clear about what you want, what your values are, how you want to present yourself to the world that could potentially lead to a new sense of abundance. That new moon is going to be squared Uranus and Taurus exactly. So there may be some things that you're trying to do that may come into some tension with some of the macrocosmic things that are out of your control also. That's something to consider with Uranus and Taurus. We've talked a lot about Uranus and Taurus 3 in particular in this channel as related to things like the climate crisis. And I believe now they're calling it global boiling instead of global warming because the oceans are starting to become very hot. And that's increasing the frequency of major storms, natural disasters, extreme heat, droughts, etc. I've been experiencing this a lot in our region recently. Just a lot of the frequency of severe weather has increased. We had a really bad storm on Wednesday where I had to go in the basement. We had 80 mile an hour per winds in our southeastern Michigan area, and I had to pack up my cats and go in the basement. And this was right before I had a reading. So it does interfere with our work sometimes. And as I'm recording this, there's another severe thunderstorm watch for this afternoon. So hopefully we'll get through this before that comes through. but it can raise our anxiety levels a little bit sometimes. We just have to learn how to roll with those punches and be resilient. So even though you may have some grand designs about what you want to do out in the world, we're really having to make adjustments to some of the challenges of our physical environment as well. So that new moon that we're seeing at the middle of the month may require us to make some adjustments to some things that are potentially out of our control, that may be around our natural forces. Okay, let me go through the chat. Let's take a stretch break. What do you say? I'll see if I can look at this chat. Do me a favor. Please like and subscribe to the video. Just hit the like button, share it with your friends. I'm gonna stretch my calves out. My hips. I have some really a lot of tightness in my hips from doing a little too much sitting on my computer. So I'll try to stretch those out. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We kind of go at a leisurely pace through these lives, and we try to read as many comments as we can. We would love it if you would subscribe and be a part of our community here. We have people joining us from all over the world and all time zones, some of the people are eating dinner right now, some are falling asleep, some are just waking up, some are staying up really late, like our friend in Seoul, Korea, which is pretty awesome. I'm really excited about that. Just stretching here. Sorry, folks. The Decans of Leo is on sale for 20% off. Check that out at my website, spencermichaud.com. If you need help through this Leo season, my readings are very in-depth, but they're also very much tailored to your specific energies that you're going through. I like to be very practical in the advice that I give. I spend at least the first 15 to 20 minutes reflecting all of the challenges that you've put in the intake form, and then trying to get clarity about your situation, about your life, and all of those things. I love being able to see how these placements are playing out in real time. I would say that there's a little bit of a kind of a life coaching energy in my readings as well. I try to help you come to the realizations that you need to yourself. I don't tell you what you should or shouldn't do unless you ask me. And but oftentimes I'll be like, client, friend, do you want my real opinion, or do you want me to keep guiding you towards your own realization? And oftentimes people are like, just give it to me straight. So I will give you my Virgo, stellium, Taurus moon, earthy, practical advice. And hopefully it's helpful. Sometimes it's useful. And I tell people, ultimately the decision rests with you. You're going to decide how to manage your life. And here's what I see in the symbols. Sometimes people take my advice and sometimes they don't. And oftentimes they end up in the same place anyway, whether they do or not. I'm not always right 100% either. So take what I say with a grain of salt. You have to trust your intuition, but I will try to tell you what the symbols are pointing towards. Oftentimes when we look at things, we have a dream or a vision, and I'm not a dream crusher. I do not want to crush people's dreams. What I would like to do sometimes is help people to find the right, the way to manifest the dream in the right form that is true to the essence of the dream and true to the timing of it. Oftentimes what will happen is you'll have something that you want to manifest, but the timing, there's just a little bit of delay in the timing. And we can get really frustrated when we don't understand that the blockages we're receiving are not necessarily our fault. They're just part of the divine timing. So a lot of times clients will come to me and we'll hash out the timing so that they can relax into the changes rather than feeling like there's something wrong with them because they're not in alignment with the divine timing. That's part of the beauty of astrology too. So yeah, reach out if you want to have a reading. Books are open. Stretch my shoulders out. I hope all of you are stretching out too. It's really healthy for you. Oh my goodness. I'll have to get one of those be right back screens that Beth suggested too. That might be part of my Venus retrograde experience, is getting some new I have to go to the bathroom screens or I'm stretching screens or something. Maybe I'll pre-record some of the like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, blah, 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 and then just do some yoga for 5 minutes or something. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think it's starting to ring a bell here. So let me check in with the chat. Lisa says the Sun, Venus, Cazimi will be on my moon, hoping it will give me some insights either to my home-based business or moving to a new home. Okay. Some lunar significations of the things that bring you security, for sure. Tarja T is here from Finland. Aquarius, Sun, Jupiter, Venus, and MC, and some asteroids. Nice. Okay, so you'll feel this one too. We got 2 Tarjas that stop in. I think they're both from Finland, which is fun. Kate says Leslie Jordan is an American actor who brought light and laughter to many through the pandemic using social media. Oh yes, he's that little guy, right? He just recently passed away, I think. Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about now. The way you spoke about loss, pandemic, and the child who's other, not sure I can validate the connections my brain makes sometimes. No worries. We'll get it all worked out. Dawn says, the perfect use of astrology, I do believe, and some people can only accept so much based on where they are in their journey. Love it. Oh, good. Hey, Julene, what's up, friend? Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well out there in Phoenix. Hope you're staying cool. How's the weather out there? Are you melting? How's your grandson? How's he doing with his football training camp? I hope everyone's staying safe out there. Kate says, I enjoy through Cazimi watching a real-time chart and sort of meditating or speaking to the goddess. Okay, yeah, that would be a nice way to interact with that energy for sure. Don says, I like the stretches. It makes us aware of taking care of the self for just a minute. Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is a long show. This isn't like a 10, 15-minute show. We're here for a few hours. And I guess I hear them say sitting is the new smoking. And we have to move around a little bit, stay flexible. I have a new chair, a sprong chair, that's like half medicine ball, half chair. So if you see me like bouncing around, it's designed to encourage more movement and lumbar movement, so I can move around a little bit. But I digress. Okay, let's get back to it. Let me grab a little bit of some calories here for just a second. Okay, so has everybody subscribed to the channel? Everybody like the video? And again, if you want to make a donation in the work I'm doing, there's a little $sign in the chat called Super Chat or Super Sticker. Always appreciate all of that. Thank you, everyone who's donated today already. All right, so we've gone through kind of the easy for you to say, the specifics, the specifics of the full moon and the subsequent last quarter and a little preview of the new moon in Leo. Now what I'd like to do for the last hour or so of the show is let's take a look at this lunation through the houses. Okay. And I'm going to pull this up in a second. And we'll start, you Leos, we're going to start with Leo rising because it is Leo season. I've been doing this kind of like astrological justice of starting. Somebody suggested starting with these like rising signs with the position that the sun is in during the particular season, which I like that idea because then it rotates, it shifts, and not everybody's going to get the Aries isn't always going to be first, and Pisces isn't always going to get the shaft, having to wait throughout the whole thing. So I thought that was a really good idea. So let's take a look here at Leo ascendant. This is my ascendant. So I'm familiar with some of the things going on in my own life. So I will hopefully be able to give you some insight into that. But Leo rising, I've got a couple here too. Like I think Kate's a Leo rising, and do we have other Leo risings? I know we got some Cap risings. Okay, let's do it. What do you say? My goal here today is to come in under three hours, or let's see if we can do it. What do you say? Hit that weekend in stride. So Leo rising, this is an important full moon for you. This is oh yeah, Carol's a Leo rising. I keep forgetting Carol, because don't you have some Aquarius stuff though, Carol? I know you're a Leo sun. Yeah, Carolyn's a Leo rising too. Cool. Okay, that makes sense. Knew there's reasons we all resonate with one another. So Leo rising, this is an angular full moon for you. And anytime we have an angular full moon, we're going to feel it really intensely. So this is over your first and fourth house axis. So there may be some things where you're trying to shine your light, where you're trying to put on a new persona. And there may be a little bit of tension between you and a partner, or you're having to keep in mind the long term to get from one shore to another. And it may require you to step up and stand out a little bit. This is something I'm going through. Like, we're going through some changes in our household where we need to kind of increase our income and increase our earning potential due to some changes in the way that our household is situated. And I'm thinking a lot about how to open myself up for new abundance, and that's going to require maybe some more visibility. It's going to require putting myself out there a little bit more, and it's okay. Like, we're all in the space that we need to be in to advance in our lives. Leo rising, you have Jupiter in your 10th house. This is a wonderful time for expanding your sense of self-worth. I mean, for expanding what you do that could bring you new resources. Mercury's heading into the second house in Virgo. So also the ruler of your second house is going to be in its own domicile and exaltation. It's a really powerful time for Leo risings, I think, in general, for expanding what they do publicly and benefiting from it financially and materially. Now, there's probably some pressure, with the opposition between Mercury and Saturn. There's potentially some challenges with, the income of someone else, like something losing potentially some income from another person, or from a partner, or from something that you've relied on in the past, which is requiring you to go up and step up and do all of these things. We have a tenant moving out of our home, and the income, we are trying to not be landlords anymore, I guess is what I will say. I'm kind of over the landlord thing, and that's been part of the challenges that I've been going through, is trying to feel like I can expand my ability to take care of responsibilities so that we don't necessarily have to have a tenant anymore. So if you were curious about that, it's a little stressful. There's a little bit of uncertainty around it. I will say this: I had a really powerful symbol come to me the other day around this. I've been pulling 2 tarot cards for the day, and yesterday I pulled the Hanged Man and the 5 of Cups. And I went outside for a little walk in my garden. That a lot of you have been hearing about me switching to my lawn to a pollinator habitat, and there is a stand of sunflowers in our yard. And we were out there early in the morning, kind of looking around, and there was a big dragonfly sitting on one of the sunflowers, and it was like one of those giant 5-inch long dragonflies, and literally has like a third eye. When it's awesome looking, but it was missing a couple legs, and it was hanging on kind of for dear life to the sunflower. And it looked so much like the Hangman card, and it also spoke to losing something, like it's losing its legs, but it was still able to cling to its faith, to the sun. It was able to cling to its spirituality. It was a real powerful message to me. Like, yes, we are losing some support system, but by clinging to your faith, by clinging to your belief in yourself, you're clinging to the ability to shine your light, things are going to be okay. And not everyone may understand your decisions, hence the hangman, but eventually things are going to be okay. A lot of people think we're kind of crazy for not immediately getting another tenant and things like that, but we're going to try it out. We're going to see what works. I think as a 12th house sun, having a sacred sanctuary and a private space has really been a dream of mine. And I think that by surrendering to the process and having faith in the universe to provide, the right thing will come along. So if you want to support that dream, sign up for a reading or sign up for a class or something, because it's an interesting transition. So many of you who are Leo risings may be going through something similar, maybe not the exact same thing, but something where you're having to increase your own personal visibility, and expand what you do out in the world to potentially bring in some new resources. And then there might be a little bit of tension towards, your need to support yourself and maybe even losing a source of support from someone else. So I'm seeing this in my own life as like, hey, Mercury is in the second house. Like, you better step up your own ability to support yourself, because you might be letting go of another support system. Does that make sense? Yeah, Kate says it's like betting on yourself. Absolutely. And I am betting on myself, which is it's not always been what I've done in the past. And it feels strange and it feels a little scary, but I think that we'll be okay. I think that it is important sometimes to believe in yourself. And if you have to make an adjustment along the way, you can. Like, for example, if things don't work out, like there's always the ability to, rent it out in the future or something like that. But I don't know if any of you have gone down the road of, being a landlord or we have a duplex, but it's a challenging job. It's not my favorite experience, but different strokes for different folks. Kate says, I've been considering the purchase of a computer for about 2 years. There will always be reasons the purchase isn't prudent. It's an interesting combination to live, Target T. Yeah. I agree. There's always some challenge of like doubt around it. And I will say, we became landlords like sort of by happenstance. It wasn't our intention to do that. We've been renting here for a long time, and the opportunity to purchase the home came up, and we wanted to stay really bad. So we figured out a way to do it. And we were very fortunate. But that with it comes different responsibilities. So we'll see. Rachel says, I think Venus retrograde is a great time to try this change out. Yeah, I do too, Rachel. I'm going to see what happens. Again, we always have to just check in with our life. Our life is going to give us the solutions. But I thought that was a really fascinating symbolism as far as the hangman. And if you see the hangman card, there's literally a sunflower like halo around his head, and he's having to reverse his perspective. So I just thought that the dragonfly on the sunflower was like, hey, try this out, see what happens, I'm just reading through the chat. It says, Lisa says, your insight about the dragonfly is so inspiring. Privacy is so important for us water signs. The money will show up for you. Oh, thanks, Lisa. That's really good to hear. I I will say this, Leo rising, and I'm including myself in this, and I won't spend too much more time since we want to be fair to the other signs. When you have the ascendant in Leo, oftentimes your IC is in Scorpio. And Scorpio is a sign that enjoys its privacy. I will say a lot of us Leo risings grew up in a home environment that didn't feel safe and that always was some crisis. And for me, having a private space to be able to just be myself without having to make adjustments for anybody else's either energy or disapproval or things like that, it's so important to me. And it's something that I think will really change my life. And I've really never had it. I've always lived in a space where there was always some kind of challenge with someone else living in the space. And I'm really ready to just lean into relaxing and just allowing myself to blossom without outer interference, if that makes sense. I think we all deserve that on some level. And everyone has different needs around that. Some people don't need that necessarily in their living space. But for me, as a Cancer sun, it's really important. It's sacred sanctuary to me. And I really hope it works out. And I'm going to need your support as a community, I think, moving forward. But I love all the encouragement. Jennifer says, what does Jupiter on the ascendant mean for Leo rising? Well, Jupiter in your natal chart or in this chart? Because Jupiter is on the midheaven in this chart, which would mean an expansion of your public life and the actions that you're taking out in the world. Tammy says, I had renters in the past, but they were either A+ or F-, no in between in quality. Yeah, it's in the interest of maintaining my integrity. I won't make too many comments on that, but I agree, Tammy. It can be a very challenging experience sometimes, and not every tenant is the same. Kate says, I would think being a landlord would require an authoritarian image as well for myself, and that feels uncomfortable. Yes, it is definitely a discomfort. As a Taurus moon, you don't necessarily want to be the authoritarian figure, but you also don't want to be under anyone's thumb. You just want to kind of do what you do. And hopefully that's what we're moving towards. Rachel says, yes, Target T, always seeking home and sanctuary, always dreaming of the next adventure. I always have tons of friends from other countries and speak French for half the time. Oh, nice. Yeah. Home is a sanctuary for sure. Kate says home is sacred, must be protected energetically. Dawn says Leos are huge on their home and personal space. My sister claims everything when she wants it as hers. Her food, her kids, my mom and brother are very much that way too. I mean, if you think about a lion or a mountain lion even, they are pretty territorial creatures. Like I am that way. I will admit, I need space. I need a territory to feel that I can just be myself. So I know that about myself. And I think that this is part of the Aries North Node too, is understanding what your own needs are and trying to test it out, and maybe part of this, maybe I'll have to adjust my expectations around it, but I'm going to live into the answers. We're going to try this. So, Carol says, teach us an advanced tarot class for some more income. That's something I could probably do. Yeah. I love the ideas for types of classes you'd be interested in. I'm probably going to be expanding my offerings here. So I would love to be of service. And this is the thing. It's like, if you take the actions and of service, the resources will come if you value those services properly, right? Rachel says, home is the foundation of well-being, and well-being is the foundation of wealth. We will support in all the ways we can. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Really appreciate you. Kate says, I devoutly share your offering, Spencer, and do hope the book groups continue. Many friends have given positive feedback. Awesome. Yeah, word of mouth, friends, is one of the greatest gifts that you can give me as an entrepreneur and as an astrologer and as a teacher, it really does make a difference, because people always want to know what an experience was like. So that is an awesome gift that you're giving me when you're giving the good word to a friend. Don says, I totally get now that I do astrology, but as freewheeling Sagittarius, freewheeling Sag, it was weird to me as a kid with Aquarius North Node. I was always like, we're all here to enjoy it. Yeah. Kate says, you're a wonderful teacher, Spencer. Well, thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. I try my best. I love teaching. It's something I super enjoy. I love learning. And I guess a great teacher starts out as a enthusiastic learner. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, is learning. And I think that shows in my teaching style. Okay, let's talk some more astrology. Let's keep going. Thank you for indulging me in those stories, and I hope that it's helpful for the Leo risings out there and just for everybody about some of the energy that we might be experiencing as we go forward. Okay, Virgo rising. Virgo rising is interesting because you have a full moon in the 6th house, and let's get rid of that for a minute. So you have a full moon in the 6th house, but that Mercury Saturn opposition is in your 1st. So this is something where, yes, you have a cadent house for your full moon. You know, maybe you want to rest right now. There's something highlighted in how you relax and how you seek solitude, but you've got a lot of work in your life that you're doing right now. With the moon in the 6th house, or you're having to work a lot with either people that are doing a job for you or people that work for you. And there could be some real challenges with Mercury opposing Saturn with how you want things done versus how the other person in your life is doing them. So I would say that this is a great opportunity to surrender to the process, or really not even not to your process, but to the process of the universe and what needs to happen in your life. Your thinking will be clear, but there may be some things that are bringing you challenges within the partnership. Maybe a partner or a tradesperson doesn't have the same standard of meticulousness that you do, Virgo rising, and that could be creating some tension. Good news is that you got Mars trining Uranus from the 1st to the 9th. So this is something where, you could be learning something or teaching something new. Maybe you can teach them the way that you want it done or something like that. It will help you to bring something into manifestation, a belief system, manifesting a belief, having a very, maybe even a trip or something. Maybe this is time to relax instead of getting fixated on how the trip is going to go, or what the itinerary is. Just wing it. I know that's giving you a panic attack just hearing that, but sometimes the best trips are the ones where you have very little planned, and you allow the universe to show you what might be in store for you. Okay. Sorry to spend so much time on Leo rising and then skip through these, but we just kind of have to keep moving. All right, Libra rising. Here we have the moon coming full in the 5th house. And this could be something where you are feeling a lot of the spotlight and the pressure to perform. This is the other thing. Every single person is going to feel some pressure to perform in the area where the sun is located. So like Leo risings, you personally, you may feel pressure to be more as an individual, more personal sovereignty. Virgo rising, you may feel pressure to take a break. And here, Libra rising, you're feeling maybe some pressure to perform within a group. This is a challenge where you may really be taking on a new role or a new persona within a group, but there might be some tension between your own personal desires versus the values of the group, your own personal values versus the values of the group. You've got Mercury making up an opposition to, to Saturn from the 12th and the 6th house. So this could also be something where you're having an awareness of what you need to relax and to have a break. Although I have found, Libra rising, that when Mars is in the 12th house, it's kind of hard to find solitude sometimes. It can be where just like there's something kicking around in our subconscious that doesn't let us relax a lot. And with this opposition with Mercury to Saturn, there could maybe even be a health issue, or like there may be a lot of work that you have to do that doesn't allow you that peace that you desire right now. So, look towards Jupiter in the 8th house. Maybe there's someone that can help you as a partner, like where you may be able to find resources from someone else that will able to assist you through this process. I know Libra risings, a lot of times they are looking for help from a partner, and this could be a good time to have someone who could provide guidance or could teach you how to manage resources as well. Okay. I'm going to look through the chat here. Jennifer says, oh, people were complimenting my teaching style and I have such a soothing voice. This is the quiet storm with Spencer Michaud. Right. I feel chill. I like this Saturn oil. I got 3 vials of oil from Sphere and Sundry yesterday. I got 2 Asclepius oils, which a yang and a yin version, which are about healing and related to healing. And I've been waiting for that to come out. I really like that stuff. And then I went ahead and bought a Saturn and Capricorn oil, even though it's opposing my Sun and Mercury, but it's making me feel very chill. It's making me feel very like just relaxed, and like I don't have to rush anything. It's a very like patient energy, Saturn and Capricorn, I'll say. So yeah, I highly recommend their stuff. Of course, you can support my partner Tanya Andrews at Third Coast Mojo. She makes a lot of cool stuff too. But Sphere and Sundry is kind of the OG magical oil place, and I like using both of their products. I think they're both wonderful companies and amazing practitioners. So give them a shout out here. Yeah, Don says no need to apologize. It's a big time for Leos. It is a big time for Leos. This full moon in particular, this month, it's your month, Leo. It's a full moon in your sign. There's going to be a new moon in your sign. It's just a lot going on for Leo people right now, for sure. Kate says, I'm not any kind of marketer personally. I require 0 incentive, but you can brainstorm perks to gift as incentives or folks connecting with you. I hope that's not tacky or crass of me to suggest. No, definitely not. That's something that I'm open to that type of feedback. I've been thinking a lot about different perks to offer with the class that I'm going to offer too, like different added value propositions. Again, I'm not one. I've been thinking about something like just if you forgive me a digression on your comment here, Kate. I've been thinking a little bit about doing a Patreon, but I just have, and I reserve the right to change my mind about this, because that's a perk orientated system. What I don't want to do with some kind of perk system or with Patreon or something like membership club, I don't want to put a ton of stuff, too many things behind the paywall. I really believe in the quality of this information and people being able to have access to it. So there will be certain things that you do have to pay for, like a class, like a reading, where there's time invested and things like that. But I don't want to put all these informational things behind a paywall. That's why I rely on the donations that you make in this show today, and that's why I really appreciate the people that have donated, and why I do them live, because it's a great way to raise money for the channel. But the paywall part with the perks, I have an inner resistance to that, and maybe you all can tell me why I shouldn't be resistant to that. But I digress, and I reserve the right to change my mind if you see a Patreon launch in the next month, because I'm gonna have to figure it out. We're gonna have to really figure out how to make some changes to achieve the dream of privacy and sacred sanctuary and being able to move about our space under our own power. Modern Goldilocks says, I need my alone time, my own space, and in 2022 had to leave my little cottage and flowers and move and now share a space, not loving it. I completely understand your need for your own space. Yeah, I'm sorry, Modern Goldilocks. I've lived in apartments that I've shared space with for almost my entire adult life, and it's hard, and it does take compromise. And there's going to be times in our life where we will have to make that compromise, and there may be other times where we have a different circumstance. And again, there's no guarantee that it's going to be a sustainable endeavor, but never trying would be, I think that would be the ultimate failure. It wouldn't be a failure if we tried it and then we realized, no, we really need a tenant and we need to figure this out. But the ultimate, like, you never know if you don't try something. I think that's the energy now that we're experiencing as a collective, is just give it a shot and see what happens, you know? And put a time frame on it, right? I'm giving myself a couple months. And then if I'm freaking out after that, we'll have to change our mind. Luna Storm says, I'm feeling too relaxed already. Oh no, I'm not putting you to sleep, I hope. Rachel says, I tried the new Asclepius series too and love it. Yeah, I wore it last night before I went to bed, and yeah, it put me to sleep. And I used the yin version, and I'm wearing the yang version today. Asclepius being the healer, the son of Apollo, who had great healing powers. And I've been having some various minor ailments here and there, and I'm hoping that oil might be able to help me find solutions to that. But yes, great work over there by Caitlin Kopic. So I love, shouting her out too. Kate says, a certain number of referrals equal XYZ, chance to audit one class, a % off, upcoming lecture, a mojo oil. Oh yeah. Yeah, you might see some collaborations between me and Tanya with Third Coast Mojo. Absolutely. I'm gonna let you in a little secret. She's putting together some stuff too, potentially some subscription options for like a monthly subscription type of thing. I don't want to, put it out there too early. And if she's listening now, sorry to let the cat out of the bag, but I want to get people excited about this because she does really great work too, and I really think she has a lot to offer. And we are both encouraging each other to maybe be more visible. And as 12th house sons, both of us, it's hard, but I think we both believe in this dream and each other. And I think that's our greatest gift right now, is the support we have from one another and the support we have from you as a community. Okay. Luna says, I like that you allow people who are not so well off to still have access to information. Yeah, that's important to me. I've been in that position where I couldn't afford stuff, and I really feel empathy for it. So I hope that you'll have some grace with me as a community as I try to figure out what the right balance is between getting my own needs met and making things accessible to the community, because I don't always have the right answer to that. But I will always hear people's story and try to keep that accessibility. So like, I guess there's a thing, like if you have more to give, like maybe there's like a sliding scale for some of these things. I know that's something that people respond well to, and I'm open to those types of things. And if you have less, then maybe just paying less. So we'll figure it out together. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to do these lives, and I'm still going to be sharing, probably oversharing, but that's okay. I love the work that I do here, and I love this community that we built. And not all forms of wealth are material. I feel extraordinarily wealthy with communal support and with the information that I've been allowed to have access to as a seeker, and I just try to pay it forward as much as I can, while also, I think at the end of the day, we all deserve to be able to have some dreams that we have. And it's been a long-standing dream of mine to just have my own house that I can have a private space for. So that's what we're looking at. Reverend Kai says it can also be used to support publicly released goals and sharing the fruits with everyone when you reach levels of support that allow you to produce those things. Is that, oh, I missed a previous comment, sorry. Patreon is also just can also just be a place for your supporters to support you in a consistent way. It's crowdfunding a salary to support work that everyone wants to see as public for all the reasons you gave. That's, yeah, and maybe I can use it like that, Reverend Kai. I would, if I do something like that, it will probably be used in the way that you are talking about, so I can still keep the most amount of things accessible for the most amount of people. So all of these things are on the table right now with Venus retrograde, right? This is a lot of the way that we're considering how to do this. Rachel says, there may be others here like me who are incredibly grateful for a channel as a treasure of knowledge. I couldn't access it right now otherwise. Yeah, we're also just, leaving a legacy, aren't we? We're really building a compendium of information, because these are classes too. I don't know if you all realize it here, but I'm teaching here, not just giving you the forecast. That's part of the value that I have. My added value proposition on this channel is that we're going to learn something about astrology, not just say, you're going to come into money today. It's no, let's learn astrology together. And hopefully that's resonating with everyone. Kate says, thank you, Spencer, for thinking of those who have barriers to this knowledge. If Adam had not gifted me a study at nightlight, I might not be here with you now. Yeah, I really appreciate the way that he does things there at nightlight. And I also was, the recipient of a different, I guess, I don't know, what was it called? Like a financial tuition break over there. I couldn't afford his classes when I first started out either. And he worked with me on that, and he's very generous in that regard. So I hope to model whatever I do after that type of generosity and access. So it's nice that we're all sharing that type of ethos. He has the sun in Cancer 3. I have Mercury in Cancer 3, and a lot of that decan is a lot about what do you do in times of scarcity, but also what do you do in times of abundance? How do you pay it forward? How do you do those things? And I hope to be that type of person as well. Okay, these really great comments here. Thank you. Don says, you're so generous with your time and wisdom. I know Astrology Podcast is a Patreon thing, or you could do a join channel on YouTube, even if we still have some public videos. Okay. I love the crowdsourcing of this type of thing. Again, I want to keep being of service to all of you in the best way possible, while also trying to expand my channels for abundance. Okay, these are great thoughts. I'm gonna have to come back to some of them. I love all these ideas. Just keep them coming. Okay, and thanks for the compliments on my voice. I'm gonna credit my Taurus moon on the midheaven for that, and also years of vocal training. Honestly, if you all haven't experienced, there's a voice training. There's a book that I recommend. It's called Set Your Voice Free by Roger Love. And that book, it has a CD with it too, probably audio recordings now. That book completely changed the way that I breathe, the way that I talk. It really allowed me to access different points of my voice and smooth out a lot of the rough edges in my voice. When I was younger, I had a lot of brass in my voice. I'm from the Midwest, in Chicago, I really had hard, and I was able to change that. You'll hear it come out every once in a while with some hard A's, but because it's still Midwestern accent. But I've been able to lift my soft palate a little bit while doing that. That book I highly recommend, Set Your Voice Free by Roger Love. Rachel says, can I also say in the age of distraction, this long form, parsing through the astrology in a thorough, thought-provoking way is much needed. Oh yes, Rachel, I couldn't have it any other way. I've tried it other ways, but I do love being able to unfold it over the course of a longer period of time. It's just, I enjoy that. I always feel like I'm rushing if I'm trying to get something in, and I hate being rushed. It's another part of my Taurus energy is we'll just take our time with it, and people can stop in and out and whatever's comfortable for them. Let's see. Carolyn says, okay, these are great ideas. Carolyn wants me to do a horary class, horary group. We'll see. I have taken Adam's horary classes, and got a lot out of that. Horary is, I like horary, especially for sports. But I will say it's one of the things I go to. It's one of the tools in my toolbox that I go to last. And I'm not saying that it is any less valuable. It is really powerful. But I have found that I go to like the tarot and the I-Ching and sometimes like that, like first. But I'm open to being of service in any way that you want me to be. Okay, let's keep going. Thank you so much for your support, friends. And I really love the encouragement, the ideas. You all are so brilliant, and it is an honor to be a guide here and to facilitate all these wonderful, beautiful minds. Okay, Scorpio rising. Scorpio rising is another angular person for this full moon. So we are seeing these oppositions in the 10th and 4th house for the full moon, and then the Mercury Saturn opposition over the 5th and 11th house axis. So the moon is in the 4th house for you, Scorpio rising. The sun is in the 10th house. So there could be a lot of focus on your career right now, Scorpio, where you are really feeling a lot of pressure in your job, pressure to be more visible. You're probably reconsidering some of your values about how you put yourself out in the world. There may be a challenging situation within your domestic situation where you have to balance out how you show up for people in public versus how you are dealing with your private life. The opposition between Mercury and Saturn over the 11th and 5th house speaks to having some great ideas about how you join with others in a group setting, but also having to come to terms with your own needs and values and desires with Saturn in the 5th house. Could also be a little bit of challenging things where you are wanting to participate in a more altruistic public group setting, but maybe there's some challenges with your love life that are pulling you away and pulling you in separate directions. The good news is Jupiter is on your descendant 7th house axis potentially, where you are, well, in your 7th house, yeah, where it is. I think if you give your partners the benefit of the doubt, and you maybe have somebody, a teacher that's coming to you and helping you with your practical day-to-day resource abundance expansion, there could be an expansion of your partner's resources also. So this is something where Jupiter is really blessing your 7th house right now and your relationship to the public. So it is not a bad time for you to be visible, Scorpio rising. It's actually something where maybe you're taking things offline for a short period of time, but it is important that once you get that Venus Cazimi and things like that you shine your light once again. I think that's going to be really powerful for you. And you may have to do things in a slightly different way, with Mars making the trine to Jupiter from the 11th to the 7th house, but also Uranus being involved in that conversation as well. So maybe partnerships are getting a real shock to the system, but practical conversations about how you show up for your community, it will bring you good fortune. Good. Okay, so Scorpio rising. Let's see. I'm just looking through the chat. I'm just going to keep going, friends. I love all these ideas. I enjoyed my experience with Adam's horary classes. Again, I do most of my horary experiences are with sports contests, but I've done horary for people in the past too, to help them find items, and I've done some stuff where like contracts, like will I be able to sign the contract and things like that. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. So Sagittarius rising. Here, Sag rising, the full moon is going to be coming to fruition in your third house. So the sun is moving through your ninth house, highlighting potentially your belief system. It could be putting some pressure on you for some higher education purposes. Maybe there's some pressure to go on a long distance trip or a journey, or to teach, even to teach a class potentially. This is a place where you may have to consider how either your long distance journey or your higher education or your class that you're teaching or the orthodox religious system that you're a part of is meshing with your everyday life. You might feel like you're being exiled for your beliefs on some level. This, ironically or incidentally, I guess, is Sinead O'Connor's rising sign, Sagittarius, as we were talking about earlier in the show. So her belief systems are being highlighted because of her death, and that is highlighting how she was a very iconoclastic, speaking truth to power, trying to shine a light on the fringe or the people that have been cast into exile. So, our charts continue on even after death, in my opinion. Like we still can see like the echoes of someone's life, as transits move over their placements. So this might be an echo of that. You may also be feeling some tension between your job and your home. Like Sagittarius rising's been getting a lot of pressure in their home life, where they're having to think about the responsibilities that they have that might be keeping them grounded or might be keeping them rooted. And also the stories from youth and childhood and from your roots, some of which are helping to manifest your true highest meaning and self, and others might be limiting you. So it's important to kind of like learn what you need to do and what skills you need to manifest in your 10th house life, your public life, but also try not to let the conditioning from your past get too far in the way of the things that you need to do, Sag rising. And also what I also like to reiterate is that freedom is not having complete movement all the time. I think oftentimes Sagittarius folks will mistake freedom from responsibilities as true freedom. But true freedom is really an internal state, not necessarily an external one. So even if you are rooted and bound to some sort of family responsibility or one place, for example, that doesn't mean that you can't manifest freedom in other ways and with your perspective. And this is very interesting because the sun is in its joy in the 9th house and the moon is in its joy in the 3rd. So be able to understand how you are connected to spirit, and then trust in your intuition, trust in your ability to move through your day with swiftness, to move through your day, your daily life, right, with grace, to be able to trust your somatic intelligence, your bodily intelligence. Oftentimes that can be manifestations of the moon in its joy or the sun in its joy, like having a connection with the greater spirit energy, but then also a connection with the bodily intelligence with the moon in its joy in the 3rd. Okay, and you've got Jupiter, your ascendant ruler, in the 6th house. So if you want to create abundance in your life, there might be some hard work ahead with the Jupiter in the 6th house. This could be a great time for changing your routines, your habits, your diet, to really, working through a challenging time period so that you can create the life that you want. All right, look through the chat once again here. I'm going to stretch again. So my butt's starting to fall asleep. My glutes falling asleep. So I'll look through the chat while I stretch out a little bit. other people are acknowledging the need for some more horary education. Chart calculation class, yeah, nice. Oh yeah, Lynn's doing Demetria George's calculating charts by hand class. Oh man, I bet that's quite an interesting endeavor. Carolyn says, yes, charts live after we die. It's fascinating to look at one's grandparents' charts and then your kids or grandkids. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you see this all the time with like artists having some of their work revisited during important transits or new releases of albums of musicians who have passed important transits. It's all sorts of stuff like that. You might be thinking of one of your loved ones, you know, or a situation around that. If you have the something hitting their chart, this is a stretch I really like, where I just like grab my ankle, lift my leg behind me, really stretches my back out. Oh, my hips. This is like a hip one. Just gotta be careful and hold on to something for balance. Luna Storm says, I'm a Sag rising. I felt like staying at home lately. Good. Well, then you're probably in alignment with Saturn, because Saturn is probably keeping you there, and that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes you need to rest. You know, you don't always have to be on the move. Sometimes you need to take time out to allow yourself to recharge the well and to recharge that battery. So don't feel guilty about that. Just lean into it, you know. Modern Goldilocks says, Spencer, even if horary isn't your go-to, it sounds like your knowledge would be helpful to some folks here. Yeah, I mean, I took Adam's horary class. I think I took it 2 or 3 times, and I've read all John Frawley's books, and I've studied William Lilly's horary type endeavor. I'd be open to it. We'll just have to take one step at a time. I think my main offering I'm working on now is a year-long Decan class, Decan walk. That's probably going to be my big offering for the end of 2023. So save your pennies. Like, there will be payment plans and there will be, you know, things of that nature. But I really hope that you'll join me for that. I think that'll be a really fun experience. I'm going to incorporate my webinars into the price of the class and potentially give a discount on all of those webinars. If you know, as part of it, if you already have some of them, I'll give a discount on that. But the webinars are going to be part of the class. We're going to watch the webinars, or you are going to watch the webinars as a student, and we're going to have like a lot of discussion. We're going to have workbooks. We're going to have Decan flashcards. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff, I think. I'm really excited about that. And the Decans is kind of I don't know, it's a sort of an area of specialty. I've tried to build on the work of Austin Coppock and T. Susan Chang and those authors that did a lot of the heavy lifting, and I hope that I'm adding something to the conversation with that, because I really like that as a technique. And people have been asking a lot about doing this more longer term Decan experience. We sort of did a Decan walk last year when we did the webinars each month, and it's going to be kind of like that, but we'll probably meet twice a month or so, and we'll have a Discord for the group, which has been really active. My most recent Discord, we're studying Secrets of the Waite-Smith Tarot, has been really active. A lot of nice communication. We've been doing daily tarot card polls and all of those things, and I'm hoping that we'll have a similar experience with the Decan walk, and I'm looking to start that in Libra season. So I will probably have it be available to be signed up for within the next week or two. But I'm looking at a start date around the beginning of Libra season. So just keep that in mind. There will be early bird discounts, like there will be payment plans. But that's probably going to be my big offering for the end of the year. Jennifer says, what is your take on having most significant others all having Sagittarius rising or sun if you're a Gemini rising? Sometimes I think, Jennifer, that we attract partners that fill, I don't know, that reflect our shadow, or that are somebody who maybe does things from a different way than we do. Like, for example, I'm a Cancer Sun and Mercury, and my partner is Capricorn rising. So we have a lot of balancing energy between the two of us. She does have Jupiter in Cancer. This is why she's such an awesome person, because she really does she has a really airtight ethical value system, and we both share Taurus moons, so there's also ways to connect. But I think, like, as a Gemini person, rising person, Jennifer, there may be a lot of like scattering of energy in a lot of different directions potentially, or a lot of like being in your head, whereas the Sagittarius person is very much in their hips, like in their heart, in their hips, and they have a unique skill for being able to unify all of the different ideas into actionable things. So that can be a nice balancing energy to the Gemini, all of the scattering of ideas. Like, Gemini is great for coming up with a million ideas, and you might be really great at coming up with multiple ideas, but having a Sag rising or Sun person in your life may help you to unify all of those ideas into something where you can move on it, right? Rather than just leave it an idea. My partner has a Sagittarius Venus, and I have Gemini Venus. So oftentimes I'll have a million ideas, and she's like, well, which one of these can we take action on, right? So there's already that interaction between the two of us as well. Oh yeah, Lynn says, Demetra's class is an intense class. It really challenges my Virgo attention to detail. I love taking classes from Demetra and Tony Howard as facilitator. I really like Tony. He's a really nice guy. And I met him at UAC, and he just is a nice, humble, generous person. I really like his energy. He just is he's a lovely person. I will say that. So I always support the Astrology University stuff, and he really helps out Demetra quite a bit too. And I love Demetra. Demetra's probably my favorite Hellenistic astrologer, and I love learning from her. Okay. Dawn says there's another great stretch where you lay on the bed and bring your knee up near the shoulder and transfer the arm underneath, and it will release your back, shoulder, and hip. Oh, nice. I'm going to do that. Dawn, do me a favor. Send me a link to a video of somebody doing this so I can know how to do it right and don't hurt myself. Carolyn asks, have you ever studied the Sabian symbols as Dane Rudyard reinterpreted them? Yes, Carolyn. You know what's funny? I went on a mission for an original copy of Dane Rudyard's book, Astrological Mandala, which is about the Sabian symbols. And they didn't have it anywhere. It was like hundreds of dollars on Amazon or eBay or whatever, used. And I found a copy at the Great Lakes Astrology Conference a couple years ago for like $5. So I have that book, and it's interesting. I don't totally use Sabian symbols a ton in my work, but again, I think that there's merit to it. For example, my I think my sun degree, like 14, 15 Cancer, literally translates to an old man looking at a mandala with the help of a very old book. It's like, oh, a mandala, huh? These astrological charts, right? And then my moon degree, you'll find this funny. My moon degree is like a teacher fails to interest his students in like traditional knowledge. Like, so I was like, oh, okay, thanks, Sabian symbol, or something like that. I just thought it was very funny. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I think that we can entrain ourselves to whatever systems that will work for us, and Sabian symbols is just another. Some people really, really use them in their work, and they're very entrained to them. I haven't quite gotten to that point with them yet, but I do find them fascinating. And I like Dane Rudyard's work also. Yeah, Rose, deck and flashcards, physical ones. Yes, that's part of potentially added value for my class. I am making physical copies of my deck and flashcards. It's a secret. Rose says I'm in Spencer's class right now, and it's amazing. Nice. Well, I appreciate, Rose has some things in common with Pamela Coleman Smith's chart we found the other day. So she's our living avatar of Pamela Coleman Smith. So I'm enjoying her take. Let me see. I'm just reading here. Okay. Yeah, everyone's commenting on these out of print books, 36 Faces, Astrological Mandala by Dane Rudhyar, both of which are very expensive unless you get really, really lucky, like I have in both cases. And yeah, the deck and flashcards, I'm going to have to redesign them a little bit. I think that might be another part of my Venus retrograde thing, but they've been very useful for my own study, and I hope to include them as part of the cost of the class. And maybe make them just available outside of the class too, so we'll see. Okay, let's move on. Let's finish this up. Let's keep going. These are really good suggestions though. So Capricorn rising, you're getting it in the middle here. Cap rising. Your full moon is happening over the 2nd and 8th house axis, and the Mercury Saturn opposition over 3 and 9. So there may be some highlighting and pressure in your shared resources house, how you work together with others to support yourself or how you support others. You may have to do something outside of the box or think outside of the box or make a transition in your own skill set or your own resources to be able to support someone else potentially, or to be able to find the right way and the right balance between what is yours and what is someone else's. There could be some tension between how you organize your belief system and your daily routines and habits. Saturn in the 3rd house could also be some challenges with like extended family members too, like siblings, cousins, things of that nature, neighbors. There could be some reality checks going on with that regards, and it could be a crisis of what you all believe and how that might be coming into conflict with one another. We always have some challenges with siblings. We didn't choose our siblings, at least not consciously, and sometimes we can have some challenges with them. But I think it's good to be able to have grace for the people in your life. And you may also, the other thing that Saturn might be speaking towards is 3rd house is really, it's not just short journeys, siblings, things like that. I find it, because it is the joy of the moon, I find the 3rd house being indicative of our habits. Many people talk about the 6th house as regards to your daily routine and habits, but I find the 3rd house is really part of that as well. I think oftentimes the 6th house will show us a health challenge or an issue or an injury, but then the 3rd house will show us how we need to make adjustments to be able to, heal or something of that nature. So you may be really reconsidering your daily habits and your daily routine and things like that. And like I know Tanya's going through that as a Capricorn rising right now, like how her day is arranged and things like that. So you, as a Capricorn rising, you've got Pluto retrograding in your 1st again, so a lot of like shifts on your what is possible for your persona and how you view yourself as well could be playing a part in the equation. Jupiter's in your 5th house right now, so the trine between the 9th and the 5th could be bringing you some really nice ability to take action for finding some pleasure, maybe even taking a little trip. I think Tanya and I have the week off next week, and we might take a day trip or two, just doing some nice relaxing things. We had a nice trip to the Nichols Arboretum recently, which is a sort of a botanical garden type place in Ann Arbor, right next to the Huron River, and just had a really nice time. We're we grind a lot. We work a lot on the weekends and during the week and etc. And we had an afternoon where we were just like, you know what? Let's just go do something fun. And we allowed ourselves to do something fun, and it was a really beautiful experience. So, Cap Rising, maybe allow yourself some pleasure around this period of time too. It's okay to relax every once in a while. And once you fill the well, that can make you much more effective when you do return to work as well. Okay. Luna Storm says, I enjoy Spencer's class. Well, Luna, what is your government name, Luna? Who am I talking to here? I don't always recognize everyone's screen name. Who are you? Like, are you here in my class? Who are you? Oh man, it's funny. I've just been. Is this It's not a. I'll let you tell me who you are. Julene says, I love studying Sabian symbols. I'd love to get a hold of that book. I have a few books on Sabian, but that one would be gold. Yeah, that was like my holy grail book for a long time, because it was like $500 or $600 used. And what I will say, Julene, is you can find Rudyard's, basically all of his descriptions online. If you look up Dane Rudyard's Sabian symbols, there's a website, there's an archive website of Dane Rudyard's work, where you can find all that for free. So you can access his interpretations, you just don't have it in book form. Luna is incognito. Well, you keep your secrets then, Luna Storm. I won't out you online. That's okay. It's a sacred sanctuary. You all can be as private or public as you want. And if you want to be more public in my more private classes, totally fine. And I think it maybe on some level that's okay, because sometimes I will inadvertently talk about some of the things we do in class. And if that's not comfortable for you, I totally respect that. Okay, Aquarius rising. This is another angular full moon. Okay, so we have an opposition between the sun and the moon in your first and seventh house. And there may be a real highlight, Aquarius rising, on your relationships right now. You may feel a lot of pressure to step up in your relationships or to perform or take on a new role or persona. And it may be making you feel a little bit uncomfortable with the moon in the first house in Aquarius one. The other thing I didn't mention earlier is the Aquarius moon in the first decan of Aquarius. You may even feel like a stranger in your own home type of thing. This is where you feel like you are almost in exile in a foreign place. So everybody may be feeling a little bit like a foreigner in some area of their life. So as you have to change, or potentially have the pressure to change your persona, Aquarius rising, you may feel a little bit like you don't recognize yourself a little bit. You may feel like you're in a little bit of a foreign place with the moon in Aquarius there. There will be some tension between Mercury and Saturn over your 8th and 2nd house axis. You've been getting kind of hammered by Saturn in your 2nd house, Aquarius rising, like where there's been a lot of responsibilities, financial responsibilities. And now there may be some focal points on the resources you share with your partner. But Mars is going to be making a trine to Jupiter in your 4th house. Jupiter is bringing you some good fortune in the 4th house. It could be helping you to find a healthy routine that will lead to expansion and good fortune. So just showing up every day and watering the garden, tending to the, removing the weeds or whatever. Although I will say it's always kind of interesting what we consider a weed these days. I'm changing my viewpoint on that. But yeah, get real, getting responsible about your budget. Maybe this is an interesting time for Aquarius rising, because a lot of times Aquarius risings will just kind of take a leap of faith with their money because of having Pisces on the 2nd house cusp there. But with Saturn there, you're having to be really realistic about it. And that can be uncomfortable, and that can be out of alignment with how you normally do things. So try not to get too bummed out about that, but also try to be supportive of your partners as well during this period of time, because sometimes if you team up with others, that can really help you to create success, because your values might be shifting within your relationships as well with Venus retrograding there. Julian is saying, I've seen that option and I think that the same is available for 36 Faces. The online version? I don't know if it's the same as the Dane Rudyard stuff, Julian. I think between you and me, the Dane Rudyard stuff is like an archive of someone who had passed, where it is like a museum, I guess. But it's free. If you find Austin's work digitally, that is a living author. That I don't think that it's a legal reproduction of his work. Whereas the Dane Rudyard one, I think, has been reproduced in a way that is like a foundation or like something like that. So I guess I'll be careful about that. I know there probably are ways to do that, but you want to make sure that you're respecting Austin's work and things of that nature too. And there should be a book coming out from him. I know that's there's been a lot of talk about that for a long time, but I'm respecting his process, and hopefully he will put that out so that everyone can have access to that material, because it's a really great book. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right, Pisces rising. For Pisces rising, you have the sun lighting up your 6th house and the moon coming to fullness in your 12th. A lot of pressure potentially at work with like all things that you might have to, you may be grinding out things without a lot of acknowledgement of the sacrifices that you're making right now, Pisces rising. You got Saturn retrograde in your 1st house, really asking you to step up and release some of the dreams that aren't tenable, and to concretize the ones and make real some of the ones that are really true to your heart. Mercury is going to be moving through your 7th house, asking a lot of questions about how you organize your relationships, and Mars will then be making a trine from the 7th to the 3rd house, to Jupiter in the 3rd house. So this is a great time to expand your daily routines and your daily habits that will help support the work that you're doing. This is a great time to get involved in your local community, to get to know your neighbors, to get to know your siblings, but just to show up regularly for yourself as well with self-care. You may be having a health issue that you're finding some solutions to, potentially with Venus retrograding through the 6th house. You may also be questioning the people that you employ, right? Like this could be like somebody who's doing a service for you, and maybe there's some challenges to getting that work done, or you're questioning the values of the people that you're working with, and that's highlighting something. So I hope that's helpful for you, Pisces rising. But again, Jupiter is your 1st house ruler in the 3rd house. Could also be a time of learning too. It could be a time where you're taking a class or something like that, and you're just having to be really consistent with the work. Don says it shouldn't be legal for 36 books to have been published before 1923 or 1964 and not renewed for copyright to be truly available for free. Yeah. So I think that the reason Dane Rudyard's work is available online is because it's in public domain. I think that's what you're referring to, Don. Like the copyright isn't renewable because it's old enough. Dane Rudyard's work is old enough that it is in the public domain. So yeah. Oh, there's a subscription thing for 36 Faces as well. If it's something that Austin's doing that you can subscribe to, then sure, then you'd still be supporting his work and things like that. So, but I don't know. I'm not super hip on what everyone else is doing all the time. But I love his work, and I love his wife's work, and I'm very grateful and indebted to the trailblazing efforts that they have made, and have incorporated it into what I do here. All right, Aries rising. You got the sun lighting up your 5th house, and the moon highlighting your 11th house, coming full in your 11th house. There might be a lot of reevaluating your the way that you seek pleasure, your own creative process, the way that you pass on legacies to others. And it may make you feel a little bit in exile in the relationship to groups, where you're kind of having to make a new start and in your groups because of your awareness of what you value now. You got the North Node in your first house. This is really increasing your ability to act on your own power, which could help make you feel empowered. Maybe a tough time for relationships because the South Node is draining some energy from your relationships. But Jupiter is going to be hanging out in your second house, increasing your material resources. Mars is making a trine from the 6th to the 2nd, so working hard, grinding away at it can really be helpful for you as well. You may be able to do the detailed, meticulous work, although the opposition between Mercury and Saturn in your 12th house, there may be some challenges around having difficulty getting the solitude that you desire. Maybe there is also some things that you're going through where you're having to change some beliefs about your solitude, or you're about hiding away from society or something like that. And there may be like some kind of circumstance that's pulling you out of that on some level. Let's see. I'm looking through in the chat. Yeah, and Mars, your ascendant ruler, is in the 6th, so great time to utilize that trine between Mars and Jupiter to really get clear on how the work that you're doing is supporting you and others. Dawn says, correct, Spencer. Public domain was the word I kept missing. Okay, good. Yeah, Dawn wants 36 Faces desperately. You and a lot of other people, Dawn. I again consider myself extremely lucky that I was able to secure a copy of that book when I did, which was, I probably got one of the last boxes of books that he just randomly was like, hey, it was out of print for a long time, and he randomly was like, I found a box in my garage. It's on Amazon. And I saw that post and immediately bought it, and then was fortunate enough to secure a copy of that book. But I can only imagine the frustration of not having it because it's so good. And I'm not trying to rub it in or anything. I'm trying to empathize. There's a book that I want that if someone can figure out how to get me a copy of this, I would love you forever. But it's Definitions and Foundations by Project Hindsight, which is a Robert Schmidt book. I've been looking for that book forever. So if someone has a copy of that they want to send my way, I will love you forever. But I understand not having access to it and wanting access to it. So we all have a little white whale like that, I think. All right, Taurus rising. So Taurus rising is our last angular lunation. Okay, this is highlighting your 4th and 10th house axis. The sun is moving through your 4th house, maybe putting some pressure or some challenges and some reevaluation of your values on your home life and your home. And you may be having some tension between that pressure in your home life and trying to work through some of your public life with your career or something like that. So hang in there. Recognize that you're also probably going to be feeling some energy with, oops, I'm just drawing arrows all over the place when all I want is circles. All I want is circles. So you may be feeling some pressure and tension between the meticulousness of your creative process and the needs of the group and the desires of the group as well. So that could be putting some pressure on you. Although you have a really nice transit, Taurus rising, with Jupiter in your 1st house. So this is a really important period of expansion for you with Jupiter trining Mars. I think that you can expand your own abilities by putting the work in with your own creative process and showing people what you can do with your own creativity. So I hope that's helpful for you, Taurus rising. Dawn says, for sure, that's a unicorn. Yes, that book. I think you're referring to Definitions and Foundations. Yeah. Don says, if I had it, I want 36 faces desperately. If I had it in my house and my house caught on fire, it would be one of the first things to grab. You know what's funny, Don? I have done that. Like whenever I go into my basement when there's like a tornado warning, I put 36 faces in a container and like bring it with me. And when I left to like when I was without power for a long time with the winter storm that we had, that was one of the things I packed up and was like, I don't want to leave that in the house in case something happens. So I totally relate to that. But what I will say, Dawn, is that I'm not ostentopic, but if you go on the deck and walk with me, I've spent a lot of time with that book, and I've spent a lot of time with T. Susan Chang's book. So I am very much inspired and influenced by that work. So I hope that I have distilled some of the essence from those two books and added in some of my other studies. Like I would say the other authors that are very much distilled into those Deccan webinars are Liz Green. I leaned very heavily on Liz Green, Demetra George's work, Joy Usher's work. These are all things that I was very inspired by when I was doing that. Robert Graves' mythological work, all of that is kind of distilled into those webinars. So I hope that is helpful for you if you don't have those yet. Don says, put it in the dishwasher if you don't take it with you. Oh, that's dangerous, Don, because what if you forget and turn it on? That's dangerous. Kate says, after the Nightlight speaker series, I bought Mastering Traditional Astrology by Michael Bryan. Oh, nice. I have that book too. Michael's a great guy. I met him at UAC, and he's been a guest on the show here in the past when I was doing more interview type format. And he is a hard worker. Oh my goodness. Whew, that guy's, he is productive. So I'm a little bit in awe of the amount of work and content he puts out, and I wish him all the success in the world, because he really has, I think he's earned it with his meticulousness and the way that he has put his effort into it. So yeah, support Michael if you can with that book. Don says, you don't have to sell yourself. I keep coming back because you are that caliber too. I enjoy your teachings very much. Well, thank you, Don. I appreciate, being in that conversation. I've tried to work hard, so I'll try not to sing my own praises. I'll allow other people to do that. I guess that's the better way to go about life, I think, sometimes, is just keep doing the work, and other people will either notice or not notice, and that's okay. Okay. So, Gemini rising. We got two more, friends. Let's get through this. We got 10 minutes to get through under 3 hours. Oh, we'll get there. We're probably not going to. I still have to get to an I-Ching and an animal, but so it goes. So, Gemini rising. Sun's in your third house, highlighting maybe an educational process, highlighting a daily habits or routine process, short journeys, your daily habits. Might be feeling some pressure to learn something new, a learning process. You might be experiencing Venus retrograde there as a change in values around how you learn. Could be highlighting something in relationship to an extended family member, like a sibling or an aunt or an uncle or something like that too. And it may necessitate you going on a trip. It may necessitate you going off the beaten path with your own belief systems as well. There's an opposition between Mercury and Saturn over your 4th and 10th house axis. So there is a focal point now on your home. Also with Mars trining Jupiter from the 4th house to the 12th house. But you're also feeling a lot of pressure, Gemini rising, in your career. Like you've probably have some, maybe you've taken on a new position of responsibility, and it's an adjustment process. And with Saturn retrograde there, you may have to review some of the things. Like you may have to go and learn some new techniques, and that may require you to go off the beaten path. That Mercury there though can bring you a lot of clarity in your 4th house and matters related to that. And where to move forward with your home situation. And that's the ruler of your ascendant too. So the good news is that the ruler of your ascendant is moving into its exaltation and into its domicile. So it's an empowered position. So you might be thinking a lot clearer and a lot more practically than you have in the past. But again, Mercury is going to hit and run right into that Saturn. So don't get so attached to the form that it takes. Utilize your clarity to really recognize when you may have to let go of a way of doing something to achieve the true essence of what you're trying to achieve. That's always something really important. And again, I'm telling myself this too, because I get really fixated on the how quite a bit. And I'm really getting challenged to say, you know what, no, do it. You don't have to figure everything out. You just have to have the right intention. And sometimes the universe is going to bring you a better plan than what you had. So that might be part of this story also. Jennifer says, yay, Gemini rising. I'm going to see my sister this weekend. There you go. So you're going to be having, you're going to have that sun highlighting the third house of siblings. I guess I would say, Jennifer, just be careful that you don't get into a values, argument with them, because she might have some different values than you. And you may have to just let bygones be bygones within this, right? Okay. All right, we're getting to our last rising sign. Our last rising sign is Cancer rising. So Cancer rising, thank you for your patience. I wonder if my good friend Janet Goodspeed is out there still listening in somewhere. Maybe she had to be patient till the very end this time, so appreciate that. So Cancer rising, you have the sun in the second house, opposing the moon in the eighth, highlighting your finances, the way that you support yourself, maybe even reevaluating the way that you support yourself, or the people who are helpers to you. Like the second house is also the house in horary of the second, like someone who helps you become the best you. Oh, Rachel, good. Thank you for your patience, Cancer rising. And you may have to, take the road less traveled when it comes to the resources that you share with others. Okay. Mercury is making an opposition. Sorry, we're getting the daily sirens going by. Mercury is making an opposition with Saturn from your third house to your ninth house. Saturn in the ninth house is really, it causes us to really take a good hard look at what we believe and what types of orthodox systems that we shape our life around. So you may be reevaluating some of those systems. And Mercury is putting a lot of emphasis on your bodily intelligence, the things that you know, not because you've learned them in a book, but the things you know just intuitively through your senses and through your somatic awareness. Mars is making a trine from your third house to the 11th house. So there might be a nice energy between a learning process that you're going through and a group that you're a part of. So you may be finding yourself having a really nice experience with a group. Maybe Rachel, I don't know if we're the group or there's another group that you're having a nice experience with today, but you're a valued member of our community. So they might be experiencing that as the moon becomes full. And so is Janet. So I'll shout out my Cancer rising friends here. And Tarya is a Cancer rising too, it looks like. So love seeing all of you in the chat and getting to know your placements. I try to memorize as many as I can. Rachel says, that's such a golden nugget on the second house. Speaks a lot to my life experience. Yeah. Really keep an eye out in this particular instance to August 13th. You're going to get a lot of awareness in the topic, the Leo topic. Okay. Whichever house I said was getting highlighted for all of you rising signs, that August 13th date is going to be a really important one for awareness of what you really want and getting clear about it. Okay. So if you're having some confusion around it, that date's going to be really instructive. Okay. Let's see. Jennifer says, talk to my daughter about what I'm going to do for retirement in a few years. Oh, wow. Okay. So a reevaluation process for you, Jennifer. Okay, good. Rachel says, honestly, Jupiter in Taurus is an abundance of groups where I am inspired and feel loved. Oh, nice. That is good. Okay. Lynn says, I'm assuming that you're talking about Austin working on the second edition. Yep. He's working away at it, and we'll see when it comes out. But everyone's got their process, and we don't always know what people are going through in their personal lives either. So I always try to have grace and patience for authors that are, maybe take their time with things. So in the meantime, I'll try to share as much of my wisdom as I can with my understanding of this knowledge, and while also still honoring his work and pointing you in his direction once he has stuff ready to go. All right, friends, I think that's what we've got through the rising signs here. I'm going to stop my share. Hope that you're doing well out there. We are coming to the close of our show today. We're stretching out, and we're going to talk a little bit about our hexagram and our animal. So the hexagram I got for you is number 42. 42 speaks to increase, benefit, harvest, enrichment, generosity, sharing your bounty. Seems very positive, right? It's changing to hexagram number 38, which translates to oppression, estrangement, misunderstanding, differing points of view, polarity, diversity, creative tension, finding commonality within difference. So we may be experiencing an increase or a benefit in one area of our life, and it may be creating some tension in another area of our life. Sometimes when we, like I said, sometimes when we win, somebody or something else loses. When one part of your life is highlighted and is increasing and benefiting, when you feel empowered in one part of your life, sometimes it takes away from the other part. And we have to have grace and understanding for that. So like when you increase your own personal sovereignty, sometimes it challenges your relationships. When you increase your own personal income potential, sometimes that can take away from the income of another or income of your partner or something like that. When you increase your ability to do things at home, sometimes that takes away from your career, and vice versa. When you're doing something publicly, that can put challenges on your domestic life. So that to me speaks to the hexagram of opposition. But just because we have differing points of view and we feel tension between it does not mean that it can't be resolved eventually over time. 3 changing lines. First is the second line. It says, someone increases him. Like 10 pairs of tortoise shells, it cannot be opposed. Constant perseverance brings good fortune. The king makes an offering to the supreme deity, good fortune. So they talk about tortoise shells in the I-Ching as a form of currency. So this might be where you receive a benefit. Maybe Jupiter in the overcoming position is giving you some good fortune in your life, right? So it also speaks to good fortune being the residue of good design, which basically means like you've prepared for this, now allow the good things to manifest, right? Like you create good fortune by being prepared and things of that nature. It encourages you to cultivate good habits and to continue on in the type of energy that brought you to the success without getting overconfidence. This is something that's a challenge in Leo season, right? Like not being, what is the test of your success, right? When you're successful in something, that's the real test of your character, right? Not just when the chips are down, but what happens when you actually start to do well? Are you going to continue in on the types of values and ethics that brought you there in the first place? I've seen that play out with a lot of people in my life, and also, in some regard with myself as well, trying to figure out how to maintain the ethics that got me to wherever I've gotten to, and to continue on with that. Line number 4 says, he walks in the central path and reports to the Duke, who follows his advice. It is beneficial to use this in order to move the capital city. So that's fascinating, because we may be going through a transitionary phase. The Aquarius story is one of a person leaving behind their home and moving on into a foreign place, right? So we may be leaving a place where we're comfortable and trying to move forward into an unknown. So when you are doing that, moving the capital city, quote unquote, which can be metaphorical for moving on to a new phase of life, it's important that you sometimes have to be a mediator or go-between. You have to communicate between people in the previous incarnation and people in the future. You have to communicate with people in the center and people on the fringe. So this might be part of this full moon essence as well. And finally, line number 5 says, if you are sincere and have kindness in your heart, you need not ask. Supreme good fortune. When there is sincerity, kindness is your power. So, I mean, that's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Like, that's one of the benefits of Leo season is Leo can be very generous when they are feeling secure and appreciated. There is a magnanimity of spirit within that sign. So fall back on your heart and your kindness if you're faced with a challenge. Fall back on your generosity, like Jupiter in the second decan of Taurus would encourage you to do. I think that when we speak from the heart, when we ask from the heart, those are the things that will lead us into good fortune. And I think you have an intuition about whether your desires are ones that were in alignment with your true heart and ones that may be a little bit out of alignment. And you have to listen to your body on that. And sincerity is the key, though. I think a sincere desire, as long as it is not, putting others at a disadvantage, can be, manifested. So that's what I got for the I-Ching. I have an animal for you as well, friends. Just take a look at the chat here. Tarya T says, I feel this so much. I'm having a real Cancer rising time. Nice. Oh, Lynn is saying Austin is a Cancer rising. I feel like I'm just in physical group talking. Yeah, he is. He has Mercury and he has Saturn in the 9th house. Maybe that's a book, right? Maybe it'll come out when Saturn turns direct, which is November. So we'll see. Kate says the ultimate question of life is the universe and everything. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Nice, yeah. It's a great book and movie. So, friends, the animal I got for you today for the full moon in Aquarius was the praying mantis, which is one that we have not gotten on the show. It's just fascinating to me. So the praying mantis can speak towards mindfulness, inner wisdom. It can be related to coming into a spiritual consciousness. It literally is folding its hands in prayer. I think that when I think about the praying mantis, though, the thing that sticks out is its quality of stillness, right? The ability to pause and to be still, but also to know when to strike when the opportunity comes. You watch a praying mantis, they move very deliberately. They're hunters. And when they finally have the opportunity to snatch up like a fly or something, it's very quick. And then they rest again. So to me, this is speaking towards a need to be still, to come into alignment with your inner self and your inner wisdom, but also an ability to act when the opportunity is right, to be able to create prosperity or something like that. Your intuition is going to be helpful around that. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to your visions. Utilize the power of silence. If there's something that's not fully formed and not ready to go out into the world, you don't necessarily have to blast it out there yet. Maybe when Venus turns direct, you'll have a clearer idea of what's going on. I didn't quite follow that advice this show, but so it goes. So yeah, I have a praying mantis egg case on one of the trees in my yard, and I've been monitoring it very closely. Maybe it will hatch during this full moon, potentially. So I'll keep you updated on that. That would be quite something, wouldn't it? All right, friends. That's what I've got for you today. I hope that you have found some benefit in our time together today. I super appreciate all of the wonderful comments, all of your super chats and super stickers. Again, do me a huge favor. If you are new here, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Share it with your friends. Word of mouth, sharing the video on your socials, it really helps me out to get more eyes on the show and whatnot. And if you want to make a donation via super chat, super sticker, buy me a coffee, I always appreciate that as well. So that's what I've got for you today. As always, make sure to be kind to yourself during these transitions. You can get through it through just being gentle, through being still, through having faith in the process. And yeah, we'll see what comes of it, right? Live into the answers. So thank you, friends. I appreciate you. And we will see you the next time. We might do a Leo season Q&A next week. We'll see how I'm feeling. I might also take a vacation next week. So I'll keep you up to date. If you want to know when I'm going to be going live again, sign up for that newsletter, hit the notification bell on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram at Spencer Michaud, at Threads at Spencer Michaud, and on Twitter. So, all right, friends, that's what I've got. Talk to you soon. Peace.